Hey everybody, welcome to the fourth annual Micro Four Thirds online meetup. I'd like to welcome everyone here, our guests. I'm a viewer of all your channels and tremendous admirer, and I have a lot of respect for everything you guys do for uh, the community here. And I really look forward to hearing your thoughts today on the future of Micro Four Thirds and how we can take advantage of the Micro Four Thirds format. Maddie will be joining us shortly, hopefully. He was having some technical difficulties, but today we have Joe Edelman and Robin Wong, Jimmy Cheng, Peter Forsgard, and Ben Chappell. And what I'd like to do is maybe if you guys could just take a minute or 30 seconds to introduce yourself, tell us about, maybe what you do professionally or about your channel. And so for the viewers that may not know you already. So I'll just start again from the top. Here we have Joe Edelman. Welcome,
Morning,
Joe.
Rob. Thanks for having me, and it's great to see all of you guys again. I am Joe Edelman. My channel, it's all about the hows and whys behind creating consistently great photographs. Basically, I am a former Olympus visionary, but still an Olympus shooter, contrary to what a lot of people think. I have recently purchased a full frame camera for educational purposes, but all my Olympus gear, that's it. I know. All the Olympus gear is still here. It's not going anywhere. And that's it.
Okay, great. How about Robin Wong next?
Hi, my name is Robin Wong. I'm a photographer based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I shoot professionally. I do events, portraits, lifestyle products. I do a little bit of weddings as well. My YouTube channel is mostly about photography. I share tips and tricks on using Micro Four Thirds cameras, mostly Olympus because I own Olympus cameras. Pretty much it. I share as much as I can. I love doing photography outside of my professional shoots. I call it shutter therapy, and
Yep.
I do photography for fun. I want everyone to enjoy photography.
Great, great. And Jimmy Cheng.
Hi there. Thanks for having me, Rob. And yeah, again, it's very nice to see everybody. I can't believe it's the fourth annual meeting. Can you believe that? I still remember the very first one. Wow. Anyway, yes, my name is Jimmy Cheng, and I'm a professional photographer, filmmaker based in London. My channel is about the art of photography and anything to do with images creations and whether it's film stills or moving pictures. I don't do tips and tricks because Peter and Robin has done such a fantastic job, so I don't do that, and I don't want to repeat content, so that's why I'm doing something completely different. But yeah, it's similar to what Robin's saying. It's all about the joy of photography. My channel is all about sharing those kind of knowledge and philosophy behind the cameras and why we're taking such and such, certain photos and that kind of thing. So it's all about enjoyment using your cameras regardless of format. And although I always stress that what kind of gear I use, just to say that you can achieve fantastic result with Micro Four Thirds cameras, and despite what people keep on saying that they can't, and this is what I do, and not really just promoting from Micro Four Thirds, but just want to raise the awareness of you're a photographer. You use your eyes, use your brain, use your creativity to achieve things. Camera is just a tool, and Micro Four Thirds is a capable tool for anybody.
Yes, absolutely. Peter Forsgard.
Hello there, everybody. Like Rob said, I'm Peter Forsgard, and I'm a professional photographer from Helsinki, Finland. Very snowy Helsinki today, and my channel is all about you getting to be a better photographer. And this year is about you getting out also to photograph, not only watch tips and tricks, because I do have the 52 assignment. So I have a photo assignment for you for every week, and it's been quite successful.
Yes, yes. And Ben, what's going on?
Hey
Tell us
everybody,
about yourself.
I'm probably the youngest channel here and the youngest guy, so I do my day job.
Wait a minute. Wait. Do we have to go there right out of the box, Ben? Come on.
Hey man, I'm only 18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm turning 20 this year.
Oh, I still get, are you in your early 20s? But yeah, so I do trade show design. Like I basically design trade show exhibits that go all over the world and the United States. So I'm kind of a bit of a designer, but also an engineer. And then on the side, I have a machine shop in my backyard, in my garage actually, and I design and machine some of my own products. Now, my YouTube channel is primarily astrophotography. But I do cover some other things a little bit. But mostly I focus on deep sky objects, which are things that are a little bit deeper than, just using a wide angle lens and capturing, the whole landscape and stars and everything. And yeah, I use almost entirely all 4/3 gear. All the sensors that I use, even for narrowband astrophotography, are micro four thirds sensors. And I choose micro four thirds because it's the easiest.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of astro gear or cameras use micro four thirds sensors. Okay, great. So let me just make a couple of short notes that if Matt, if you're watching, please try and join if you can. Use that link. I don't know if you're having technical difficulties on your end or if it was our end, but we're here waiting, and I can always add you in at any time. And for our viewers, if you could hold your questions, maybe after we kind of cover our main topics, and for those of my guests that can stay, we'll do an open Q&A for you. But I'd like to go ahead and get started with the main topic, generally about micro four thirds industry or community and the future of micro four thirds. And what I'd like to do is each of you have a very unique perspective, I think, on using, in photography, with your backgrounds in history and gear. And, so my question is really what trends or changes have you seen in the industry this past year that you think are going to help photography and maybe more specifically micro four thirds? Because as we know that recently a report came out that, OM Systems is still ranked like number 3, I think, as the number 3 selling camera in Japan. So it's still up there over and above Nikon. And like I said, we don't need to be specific about gear, like what you'd like to see or what trends you're seeing, but more broadly about, what would be good for what kind of trends are you seeing in the professional industry or for amateurs, based on your audience and things that you're seeing personally. So again, we'll go ahead and start with Joe there at the top there.
Okay. I don't think there's actually, so to drill this down, I don't think there's been a lot of changes in the last year specifically. I think changes are continuing that we have been seeing. I think a big part of why you see Olympus being number 3 in Japan has a lot to do with lifestyle. And I think that, and this is just my opinion as a former Olympus visionary, I think that what OM Systems is doing right now with putting all of their focus and all of their marketing into nature, wildlife, astrophotography, macro photography, I think really what they're doing is they're going after kind of a lifestyle aspect, which brings a younger audience into the Micro Four Thirds brand. It's people that are making that step from smartphones into real cameras for the first time. Olympus is not in a position, this won't be popular, but they're not in a position to compete head to head with Sony, Nikon, or Canon. And that's simply because they're making different products. And in the photography world, photographers, we do this thing. And it's kind of like car owners, here in the United States, it's, you put a Chevy owner and a Ford owner in the same room and bad things happen. Okay. We do the same thing in the photography world, which makes no sense. It really doesn't. And they're not in a position to compete against those cameras. They're not trying to compete. So I think it's really smart of them that they're going after a younger audience and essentially building their future that way. So, and I think that was already happening. So I don't know that I'd say it was in the last year, but I see that trend continuing.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's definitely been an emphasis, like you said, on sports and wildlife and astro and macro. All of their content that they've been releasing has been related to those specific topics.
Yep.
Not that we can't use the cameras for everything, but
Right.
yeah, that's definitely a direction that I think OM Systems is going and has been pushing for over a year now. But what do you think, Robin? What trends or changes do you see in the industry that would help Micro Four Thirds or impact Micro Four Thirds?
Just a note on the number 3 ranking of Olympus or OM system in Japan. In case anyone don't remember or they're not aware, Olympus has always been number 1 in mirrorless for many years. Olympus is a strong player in Japan, has always been, and even now they don't have many new products, and there's the changeover taken over by a new company. They're still number 3, so they're doing really well. Having said that, the trends, I don't foresee anything new immediately. Whatever we know is happening. More and more people are using smartphones, and people who buy cameras, they want a hybrid system. So the video part, the filmmaking part of the camera, the video capabilities, that's very important. So I think it will be great if OM system, if they want to remain competitive, if they want to really fight, they have to target these two audience, the smartphones, as well as the video makers, right? So we know that EM1 Mark III or the EM5 Mark III, they do have really good video capabilities. I've been using them to make my own YouTube videos, and I love them. I have no complaints. The autofocus, image stabilization, everything is great. We have small lenses. I'm happy with the quality, but I'm just a simple content creators. If you really want to target the filmmakers, the serious ones, you need to have like the 4K, 60, all this. I don't even know these things, right? These are beyond me. I'm not a filmmaker, so I'm not going to go into that. But what I want to say is the two trends in the industry that I see, which are very important: filmmaking, smartphone. I don't know how Olympus or OM system is going to target them, but it's important. You can't ignore them. If you just take like 5% of that market, just 5%, they'll dominate the whole camera market. Just think about that.
Sorry, I do remember early on when OM Systems was took over, that they did make a statement that they were going to focus on video. So we'll see with maybe the new camera they're going to announce soon, hopefully, if that's the case. But video is definitely seems to be very important in a lot of cameras that come out. Now, they keep talking about bigger and bigger specs, 4K, 8K, things like that. And it's not stuff people really need, but definitely OM Systems did recognize that trend early on, and hopefully we'll see some of that, in their new camera. But okay, Jimmy, we will be very quiet so everybody can hear you. But what would you like to add?
Like this now. Right. Okay. It's interesting. Question about trends, because the trend hasn't actually changed for the last, I would say, 5-6 years now, and hasn't changed at all. So what I see from not just OM but like any manufacturers now are playing with numbers. That's what they're doing, and it's what Apple computer used to do. It's not about what customer wants. It's what the company tells them what they need. So that's why they're heavily marketing all these 8K capabilities and all these high frame rate stuff. You're quite right, Robin. You're saying nobody actually need them, and Rob, you said it quite rightly. So no one needs them, but it's something that they can market, and that people would say, wow, if I have an 8K camera, that would be really cool. But will you actually use 8K? I bet 90% of people who shoot 8K can't even process them on the computer in the current setup, because it's so resource hungry. It's not something that is simple, like you can just pump out and edit it like normal videos that you can do. So, but unfortunately, this is what's happening, and it is continuing this trend. I already see some YouTube content creators saying that they're already editing their videos in 8K for the YouTubes. Come on, you're doing 8K content for YouTube. I think that's a little bit, OTT to me, to be quite honest. And even 4K to me, people mostly watch them on the iPhone, which is or smartphones, which mostly 1080 will be more than sufficient. And because I make a lot of videos, and I could clearly say that from a filmmaker's point of view, and a lot of these things that you're hearing now are not actually essential. And what they need is actually the options for them to select different codecs, different bit rates, different a lot of things that filmmakers actually do. Like professional photographers, we're not looking at megapixels a lot. We don't look at from that point of view. We don't look at high ISO capabilities, because we know how to find the light. And and people who are continuing arguing the point that you need more cleaner images and things like that at high ISO. But how high are you considering shooting, and what sort of numbers are you thinking of pushing? If you're really thinking about like, I have to shoot at 12,800 all the time, I think you're already in the wrong kind of environment to shoot photographs to start with. And if you use fast lenses like 1.2 primes, like throughout my entire professional career, I rarely push over 6400, and that is like a emergency case for any situations. And so like, how clean do you really need? And now we have AI software like DxOs and Topaz, and even on One and all the others, even Adobe's are getting on board now, all this AI stuff. Software can compensate a lot of this. I would say maybe a little bit of the downside of the Micro Four Thirds sensor being smaller sensor, like noisier at high ISO. But you can, you can see that a lot of users are using this AI noise reduction software. They can almost completely eliminate that defects now, and you can find that 6400, 3200 are completely usable in most cases. And that means that to me, I don't see a major problem from a technical point of view for any competent photographers. And for people who don't understand exposure triangles, who don't know what light is in photography to start with, they may struggle to understand the concept. They might think that, oh, I need something that is as clean as a whistle, and shooting at 12,800, 500,000 ISO. Don't get me wrong, those are cool. Those are really cool. Like, imagine you're shooting wildlife. You do, in some cases, have some of these animals who are in pitch black. So this high ISO will help them get those shots. So like, don't get me wrong, they are good technologies. But what I'm saying about how many of you go out in the dark to shoot animals? You probably you talk about like 0.10% of people will actually do that. And majority of the photographers out there, consumers, we are looking at general cases. And Micro Four Thirds is as capable as any other system. And I don't see the major downside anywhere. And like Robin said, we have, because of the small sensor, we have the best IBIS in the world. It continues to be, because physics, you can't defy it. Larger formats, larger sensor, they have less room to move, and they overheat a lot, and there's so many things going on. But there's trade-off. That's all I can say about the different trends. But in terms of where we're heading now, and OM and I think they are in a very different position at the moment, and I would say that they are very clever. I would say clever. I wouldn't say they want to. I don't think they want to compete with Canon, Nikon, and everybody else. They just want to look into their own market, what they can sell, what they can actually do within the community. The likes of I know people still talking about it. Like Joe, you already said that people are talking about this. Like OM is completely moving out of all the traditional genre of photography. Like street, studio, portrait, all the other stuff. They move straight into the outdoor stuff. It's only because that they can see that's the strength that they can highlight to potential photographers. And very simple, because let's say consumer using iPhones, they want to move up to real cameras. And this is something that, okay, I can go for full frame, but imagine if I have to invest something that can capture birds in flight. I can capture things from like 3,000 meters away. I need big lenses, expensive big lenses. And if you compare like for like system-wise, like Micro Four Thirds is only a third of the cost of anything that you can find on the market. Forget about this f11 lenses from Canon, and they are just not worth thinking about. I know that YouTubers have been talking about those lenses and they've been raving about it, but I don't think it actually makes any sense at all. But this is what OM is playing. They're playing to their strength. They're playing to something that they believe, would appeal to anyone who's moving into that sort of sector. But doesn't mean that the camera is camera. You can use it for street, you can use it for portrait, you can use it for anything. It's just something that they haven't been promoting, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't work. So I would say that for people who are looking into a camera system, the best things that I always say to anyone is to first try it first. Before you even just blindly listening to reviews and other people's suggestions and stuff like that. The best thing is to go to a camera store, hold the cameras in your hand, put a couple of lenses, go out, if they allow you to take out to the shop, walk around the block, just take a few photos, see how it feels in your hand, take the memory card back home, look at the images. If it's good enough for you, that's good enough for you. You don't have to compare specs, compare sizes and things like that. I think that's almost like camera club people talking.
Right, right. Well, yeah, you brought up a couple interesting points. I mean, there's a lot of technology that they put into cameras, even though, like you said, like 1% of the market might actually use those things. And, some of those things are just nice to have and they're not necessary. But I think anything that a manufacturer can add to a camera to make our jobs easier, if there's a tool that we can use that they put into the camera, I'm all for that. Because a common example or question I get is, between the EM1 and the Mark II and the Mark III. And I said, well, Mark III's got live ND and handheld high-res shot and a couple other little things. But I said, those are just nice to have. And if those are things you do all the time, maybe. But, just buy an ND filter and get a tripod and, you save a lot of money. Get the Mark II.
Absolutely.
Yes. But like I said, like 8K and all of these things are just nice to have if you think you're going to use it. But yeah, it's not what people need.
Yeah.
And
I mean, another argument is that people are saying, "Oh, let's buy an 8K camera. It's future proofing." But trust me, this is technology we're talking about now. You talk about future.
Yeah.
You talk about future proofing. Buying 8K camera now. 2 years later,
Right.
all the 8K camera is going to outperform everything you buy today. So what's the point of future proofing when you're not ready for it yet? So wait until
Right.
the technology is mature, when all our computer screen and TVs are 8K capable, when you can stream contents at 8K quality, then you talk about 8K productions. But at the moment, there isn't even contents available for 8K.
Right.
And so I think future proofing is also like a word that people always misunderstood. They say, oh, I can buy like 80 megapixel cameras now for future proofing. But will you actually use that? Do you even print to start with?
Okay. Well, that's a lot of information there and ideas. What do you think, Peter? What trends or changes do you see for Micro Four Thirds?
I don't see any big trends right now that like everybody else has said. I agree on that, and then I agree on what Jimmy said about the numbers, that the marketing has gone towards like 8K and how many frames per second, and even some megapixel races kind of bubbling under, and I think that's kind of stupid, but that's what the marketers do, and they want us to buy that. But on the other hand, for example, 8K, it's not only about being future-proof, it's also about cropping with the one-man band as a videographer. If you have 8K, you get different sizes of the image in one shot, which I think is the thing, not the delivering in 8K, but I think that's the advantage. At least that's for me when I'm using 4K. Most of the stuff that it goes out is full HD, but I do have several different crops from the same image when I'm filming by myself. I think that's why I think it's a good thing, even though you don't use or deliver 8K or 4K in that sense. But otherwise, I think, and one comment about the Japanese market is that pen cameras has been really popular in Japan, and that's why they probably are quite popular over there, because that's the reason they have it, because it doesn't fit their current niches that they want to go, because pen camera doesn't compute with the wildlife or anything like that. So that's probably why they're having it. And the same thing here in Finland, actually, pen cameras are really popular among lifestyle bloggers and what they use to make images for their blogs, and that's has been a big seller here in Finland. But I don't see any big trends. Maybe the outdoor thing is something that could be bubbling under, because now there's been all kinds of lockdowns and people had to stay home because of infections and quarantines and stuff like that. So there might be something that people go out, and also the outdoors is a great place. You can go into the woods and walk around and nobody's there, so you can kind of, so that's in a sense could be in the future small trends. That might not be such a bad thing for OM system or OMDS, but I think it's a big gamble, and if they cannot pull that out, then we don't know what happens.
Okay. Robin. Or I'm sorry, Ben.
There we go. It would not unmute. So I have noticed two really big trends since 2010. Okay, I noticed in 2010, all the manufacturers kind of made this decision to go big with their sensors.
Oops, we're losing your audio a little bit, Ben.
Oh, really?
No, I can hear him.
I can
You
hear
hear
him.
him? All right.
I can
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
him.
totally fine.
My voice
Okay.
is not the best today.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But anyway, since 2010, like all the manufacturers, they kind of made the decision to go big with sensors. And if you look at the history of photography, that's the opposite of what the industry has always been doing. The industry has always been going towards smaller sensing surfaces. I know when cameras first came out, the smallest camera you could buy was an 11 by 14 inch glass plate, and then it went to 4 by 5s, and and then we went down to 120 film, and then 35 millimeter came out, and that was a big deal. And then APS-C, which is what a lot of our digital sensors are based around, came out, and then came out digital, and there were virtually no 35 millimeter sensors. Like APS-C was the biggest thing you could get. And during those days, photography was booming. And then when the camera manufacturers went the opposite direction, they went more expensive, they went less accessible, because let's face it, bigger sensors and bigger imaging surfaces are less accessible to everybody. And that, I think, is where the industry is kind of hurting itself, is that they've all made this decision at the same time to go for bigger rather than more portable and more accessible to everybody. I know, like, this Pen F that's hanging behind me, my wife was scared to use my E1X, okay? It's too big. When she saw that thing, she loved it, and she loves taking pictures with it. She killed the battery on the thing the first day because it's small and fun to use.
Right.
And then the other thing that I think is the big trend in the industry is computational photography. And computational photography is really nothing new. Computational photography has been around since the 1960s. NASA's the one that invented it. That's how do you think they get those great pictures out of those spacecraft? I mean, if you've ever seen the raw data that comes from NASA's imaging cameras, it doesn't look like an image. Okay, and they apply all this processing to it and all this computational algorithms and stuff that basically makes it into a good picture. And as a matter of fact, in 2010, a lot of the cell phone manufacturers came to NASA and said, how can we make our cameras take better pictures? And NASA said, here's all of our computational photography software. You can use it. And they've been applying those techniques to cell phones. And it's right around 2010 that cell phones really took off in image quality. And that's when people got to the point where we can't see a difference between the point and shoot and the cell phone anymore. And that's what wiped out the under half of the camera industry for all the manufacturers. And it's because manufacturers to this day of cameras are still, to a large extent, ignoring computational photography. So computational photography is where it's at. And then how can we appeal to the market of young users? A really simple example is just getting the picture to the people you want to get the picture to. Right now, I got to take this card out of the camera. I got to stick it into a dongle that goes into my laptop, and then I have to download it and I have to process it. And then usually I have to export it to my desktop, and then I can text it to somebody or put it on Instagram. That's just so much work. Why can't I just, from the camera, send the picture directly to my Instagram account? They've got Wi-Fi on them.
Mm-hmm.
So making the photography more easy to distribute from the camera, I think, is another area that, we've kind of got it a little bit with the Olympus OI Share app. That's actually how my wife gets her pictures off the pen into her cell phone. She downloads them through Wi-Fi, which takes forever, even the JPEGs, and then she texts them to the family chat line, because every family has a chat line that everybody's connected to, and we're all sending our daily pictures to each other through. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, that's interesting, and I think it makes a good segue into my next question, really. But just a quick comment. Ben is primarily does a lot of astrophotography with Micro Four Thirds, and I think it was Robin or Jimmy brought up the fact about how companies have moved to larger sensors, but the larger sensors can overheat and things like that. And heat is a big problem in astrophotography, and I think that's one of the big advantages for Micro Four Thirds is there's very, very low heat generated for those long exposures that you would do in astrophotography, and it's definitely one of the areas that OM Systems is focusing on. But let me move back to Joe and ask you, what ways do you think is the best way to, based on the trends or the discussions we've had so far, how can we take advantage of Micro Four Thirds, or what kind of photography do you think Micro Four Thirds is best for? And that Micro Four Thirds is sort of uniquely qualified to best handle any type of photography, whether you're professional or amateur, if it applies to both or to one specifically. What are your thoughts on that?
You just want me to piss off a lot of people, including OM System, is what you want me to do. So, unfortunately, Rob, your question, it's completely counterintuitive to everything every one of us has just said, right? So there's no best photography that the camera's suited for. It's a damn camera. If people want to make better use of their cameras, number one, they need all the whining. And sorry, folks, that you're watching, but all this whining in the chat. They need this. They need that. We need to go back to the film days. We need to have that. We need to have this. Now, here's what you don't expect me to say, since I call it whining. Keep bitching. Keep bitching. Because that's actually the information that helps camera companies prioritize what their new features are. Now, let's be clear. Some of what you guys are bitching about, like, come on, get real, right? But the fact is, the camera companies want to hear that stuff. But here's the real advice. If you want to figure out how your cameras are best suited, stop watching freaking YouTube. Period. YouTube is not helping you. We're not helping you when you watch it like it's weekly entertainment. Pick up the goddamn camera, stop whining about it on Facebook and YouTube and everything else, and go take pictures. Period. That's it. Done.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Definitely, and you talk a lot about this on your channel to your viewers, but it has a lot to do with, people can get frustrated sometimes with their camera, and that's why they don't go out, and they'd rather sit down and just watch what's possible rather than doing what they can do.
Yep.
And, your brains work, and I think you've mentioned this before, where, we're just lazy. Our brains are lazy and we don't work, right? We have to go out and practice so that these things become automatic.
Adults, science has proven, adults are experiential learners. We have to do it. You can watch all the stuff you want. You can read all the stuff you want. And it's not that that's bad, but you have to understand, like, if you watch, a video from any one of us, if you don't go right out and try it, actually put it to use, then you essentially wasted your time. Because what happens, and I see this with so many photographers, they watch lots of YouTube videos. They read lots of articles on the blogs, etc. And look, knowledge, I'm a big believer. Get as much knowledge as possible. Knowledge is never bad, but we have so many knowledge resources available to us today that we get too much knowledge in our heads. And literally, and folks, I don't care how good you are, you all know this person, and it may be you. We have so many people that know everything about photography, but they can't shoot the side of a barn if you stand them in front of the damn barn. Okay, because they know all this stuff, but they can't actually put it to use. And look, there are people, their joy in photography is gear. And I respect that. Like, I totally respect that. But for me, the joy in photography has always been people. I'm a people photographer. For Ben, it's stars, right? So, for me, I want to be with the camera in my hand. I want to be using it, not learning stuff that I'm not actually going to go and do.
Right. I think a really good analogy that I heard once was, it's like when you're a little kid and you first learn to tie your shoes, you have to maybe learn it using a song, or you have to do it over and over and practice over and over. And then it just becomes automatic, right? So learning photography is kind of like that. At first, you get as much knowledge as you can to learn how to turn the strings and push the buttons and stuff. But unless you go out and practice, it's not going to be automatic, and you're not going to get good at it unless you really practice and get out there. So, at some point, you know how to tie your shoelaces. You have to start tying your laces, over and over again.
I
Okay,
gotta go
Robin.
like 6
Yes.
years ago, I picked up a book on digital astrophotography, and in it, the guy said 4/3 camera sensors are too small and too noisy to do astrophotography. And so for about 5 or 6 years, I didn't even try to do astrophotography on any of my cameras.
Hmm.
And then a few years ago, I went out, I was at the observatory, and I was like, I'm just going to hook my camera up to the telescope and just try it. And I was blown away with what I got. And I was like, oh my word, I have been lied to. You just need to try and
Yeah.
practice and get better and take pictures. Don't let
Right,
people
and-
tell you that you can't take pictures because you have camera X.
Right, and you learned why Micro Four Thirds works better in astrophotography than, say, a full frame camera. You really have pretty in-depth knowledge of sensor technology and things like that. But that's also very important, is when there's a new feature or some particular characteristic of a camera, it's nice to have, but to understand why that works better and how it works is just as important. But anyhow, Robin, what do you think? How can we take advantage of Micro Four Thirds or photography in general?
Before I start, Ben, is that Pen F behind you secure? It looks really scary. I'm really scared for your Pen F. Are you sure it's not like gonna come down anytime soon? Okay, no, that doesn't look very secure to me.
No, it looks like it's hanging on a strap.
All right.
Yeah.
So coming back to the topic, what can we do, or how do we maximize the use of Micro Four Thirds? I'm going to speak on behalf of everyday casual photographers, not for professional photographers, because I believe that if you are a professional photographer, you should know what you want or what you need. You don't need us to tell you what to do, right? If not, then why are you a professional photographer? So for most other photographers, which is like 99% or more of the photographers in the world who are not shooting professionally, take advantage of the fact that Micro Four Thirds cameras are really small. This is EPM1 with a pancake lens, and this is a smartphone. It's not actually bigger than the smartphone. It is fatter, of course, but if you want to put it in a pocket, this actually fits better than the smartphone. Sometimes I have pockets that the smartphone doesn't fit into very well. And the fact that it has its own battery, it doesn't drain the battery out of your smartphone when you shoot, that's a huge advantage. Now, the thing is, shooting more is important, not just for the photographer, but for the industry as well. So for the photographer, the only way you can improve is to shoot more. Just like what Joe has just said just now, stop obsessing about gear, stop complaining, stop ranting, stop going on, stop watching all those YouTube videos, comparing. It doesn't make any sense. You have to go out and shoot, and the more you shoot, the more you understand the camera, then the more you can get more out of your camera, the more you know about yourself, what you want to do with your photography. And to me, photography is about storytelling. Photography is about yourself. The photography is about what you want to do with your photographs. What are you saying? The ideas, the emotions, the message is in your photography is about you. Right, so it's not about what's the best camera that I have, what's the next best thing that I can get to tell the world that my photography is so good because I have this camera. And the important thing about why small and light cameras, this EM10 and another pancake lens, the kit lens, the Panasonic 12-32. True story. This morning, some of you will hate me. Some of the people in the chat actually came with me for a photo walk this morning. I was using this Canon 5D Classic with the 50 f1.8. Fun camera to use. I love the camera. I love cameras. I'm a photographer. I love all cameras. No hate for any brands. I love it. But you know what? After the photo shoot, I went to the gym and my right arm was really sore for the first time. I was like, what the hell? That never happened to me all this time when I was shooting with Olympus, with Micro Four Thirds. Okay, I don't have the EM1X. I had the EM1 Mark II, EM1 Mark III, and most of the time when I'm on the street, I was using pan cameras or the EM5 Mark III, and they were with small lenses, right? Prime lenses, 45 f1.8 is my favorite, 25 f1.8, or sometimes all these nice primes like the 14 f2.5, all the tiny lenses. I never had any discomfort. I don't feel any pain anywhere. It is so small that I want to carry it everywhere. And the more you carry it with you, the more you shoot, the better you get. And this is what we want. We want everyone to shoot. We want all the Micro Four Thirds users to shoot more. And the more we share the photographs, the more we tell the world that, hey, this is a great system and everyone can enjoy photography. And I want, like I said, I want everyone to shoot. Not just this. There's a joy with holding a proper camera, clicking the shutter button, versus using the touchscreen on the smartphone. And yes, I agree. Coming back to the point that Ben mentioned just now, I agree that we should just somehow integrate this with all the smart technologies. Like, why can't we just upload straight to Instagram or Facebook posting, right? I agree with that. And Samsung actually did that. I'm not sure if you guys remember this. They had a camera with the capability, it's an Android-based camera. You can post your images to social immediately. They did that. And because Samsung exited the imaging industry, this technology was no longer explored. They were actually at the forefront. They were the first to introduce Wi-Fi in the camera before Canon, Nikon, Olympus did Wi-Fi. They were the first to push all this connectivity. Just too bad Samsung is no longer in the race. If they were there, I'm sure today all cameras can do that. You can just upload immediately to, maybe you do a video, you can upload straight to YouTube, for example, with some editing software in the camera. Yeah.
It goes back to your other video that you did about the future arrived too early,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, the Olympus Air.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what do you think, Jimmy? What trends or what do you think? How can we as photographers take advantage of Micro Four Thirds or photography in general?
Well, first of all, and I kind of echo what Robin just said. I won't be speaking on behalf of the professionals or anyone who are very experienced in photography, simply because they already know what they need and what sort of speciality they want to focus on. So, like in general, I think first I would ask this: anybody just think about what photography means to them. What sort of thing they want to capture in life with a camera in their hand, and because it plays a big part of it to decide what sort of camera they need. And I can guarantee that like 95, maybe even 98% of people come at it, well, I just want to snap something, just to of our daily lives, of our kids growing up, of pets running around kind of thing, holidays, birthday parties and that kind of thing. And in that sense, like, would you really want to, first of all, pay, especially today's prices, you talk about like 5, 7, 10 grand for a full frame system, like a body and a couple of lenses, easy. Micro Four is affordable, still affordable, regardless what people I think are saying. Like if you go for the pro grade equipment, of course you're going to have to pay for it, but we have affordable 1.8 lenses, kit lenses are very cheap. And if you can't afford new, you can buy used. They're even cheaper. You can pick up a lens for about 50 quid, like £50 or $80 or whatever. And so it's not about a price. I think people are too drawn to the latest and the greatest and starting to compare apples and oranges. And but if your primary reason to get into photography is to take photographs, and I would say that if a camera can take photographs, they are good cameras, regardless what it is. So like, I think people are just really starting to have this debate in their head, and is 2022 models is better than 2021? Of course it's better. It's 1 year later. If you like really dig into the technical specification, it's 1 year ahead already. It will be better, but does it mean that the 2021 model is a bad camera? Of course it's not. And equally, I could say that 2015 camera is really good. People are still buying EM1 Mark II. People are still buying EM10 Mark II. All this stuff, they're still very, very good cameras. And then, they can capture things that everybody need in today's world. If you're thinking about, I just need to capture my kids growing up. You don't need any of the latest stuff. In fact, you can pick up a 2012 EM1 Mark I for a couple of $100. It still does a good job for that. Like you don't need anything else. If you're struggling, thinking, oh, I need to take a loan to get a new camera, I always suggest, save those money, do something else with your kids, maybe take out to a proper party, go on a holiday, instead of start really focusing on gear. And gear is just really secondary. There are tools at the end of the day. If you've got a lens, got a camera that can take photo, and that's a good camera for you. And that would be my always suggestion. But Micro Four Third, and is always have that size advantage, what Robin said already. I came from that background, like probably like Joe would probably agree, echo that as well. Before I switched to Olympus, I was a Canon guy, and I worked using Canon full frame for as long as I can remember. I started with their film SLR cameras and moved on to digital, still full frame. In 2012, that's the first time I ever experienced an Olympus camera. So I bought an EM1 Mark I. And so that was my very first Micro Four Third camera. And guess what? After I bought that camera, whenever I'm not working, the EM5 is actually the camera I take out to use on walking around the street. I'll do things with the EM5, not my Canon, because that's bulky, that's big. I thought, like why? I'm a photographer. I can take anything, with any. I had that camera too. That's my first digital Canon, Robin. And so like I don't need the bulk. I can still take the same picture. So why would I want to carry a camera system that's 3 times the weight? And I can have my EM5 with the kit lens. I had the kit lens with me, and all I need just a little pocket to hold the camera. From that point on, I started to realize how good the system can be. Although having said that, I didn't move to Olympus until another 4 or 5 years later, simply because at the time, I didn't consider Olympus was, professional ready, because they don't have a camera system that can allow me to do what I need to do. That obviously all changed until EM1 Mark II came out. That was I think to me, it's the defining point for Olympus that really got them into the professional market. And but I talk about this another time. But so what I'm saying is, Micro Four Third is is definitely more than enough for most people, unless the gearheads and with all due respect, people who enjoy gear, that's totally fine. Like Joe was just said. But to me, is that if you're a genuine photographer, if you're interested in taking photograph and making images, and I think that Micro Four Third is a viable and probably one of the best systems you can have.
Yeah, like you, I was a Nikon shooter, full frame Nikon shooter professionally, and I switched to the EM10 Mark II because I just wanted something small and light to go out hiking with. And I converted, and now I use Micro Four Thirds for all my professional work. Within a couple of months, I stopped using Nikon. It didn't take long at all for me, but I came at a much later point. And yeah, I think really, well, anyway, I think you already said it, so I'll move on. Peter, what do you think? How do you think people can take advantage of Micro Four Thirds?
Well, a lot has been already said that I was going to say it, and I wrote down beforehand an answer for this question is that have the camera with you at all times.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that, of course, photograph all the time. And one comment about not about or the comment is only about hobbyists and enthusiasts. I think this applies to pros too. I know too many pros that do not photograph on themselves, and I used to be one of those since I realized that that's not the way. I was in the studio all the time and didn't do anything else most of the time. So now I do everything. I try to photograph everything that I can, and I have cameras all the time with me. Just it's practice, and it can open up some new things even though you are a pro doing something.
Yeah, and it's very similar to you're saying very similar, I think, to Robin as well. Is the small compactness of Micro Four Thirds really does let you take it with you everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah, this is EM1 Mark II with the 20 millimeter. This is really small. You can't fit it in the pocket, but you can just hang it anywhere, put it in your bag, and it's
Yeah.
very small package.
Yeah. So get out and shoot, basically, because you can
Yes,
take Micro
exactly.
Four Thirds everywhere.
Exactly.
I mean, I go out time to time with a TG5. I like it, the tactile
Yeah.
buttons and things instead of using a smartphone. But anyhow, what do you say, Ben? What would you like to see next for Micro Four Thirds? Or I'm sorry, what would how can we take advantage of Micro Four Thirds?
I'd love to see a multi-aspect sensor, something that doesn't crop the
Mhm.
image when we're doing 4K video. Because I noticed that, like, before I got into video heavy at work, at least, everyone was always like talking about wide-angle lenses a lot. I was like, why you guys use? It seems like you overuse wide-angle lenses. And then when I started shooting 4K, I was like, oh yeah, there's a crop. So it would be nice to have a sensor that is a little bit multi-aspect, maybe, but still took basically its corner-to-corner edge was basically the same as the standard 4/3. And then I'll tell you too, for astrophotography though, I would love to see built-in dithering into the sensor, which with Olympus's sensor shift technology, that would be such an easy thing. Just write a few lines of code for. And if you guys don't know what dithering is, in astrophotography, we have a saying, dither or die, because it's a really big deal to us.
Mhm.
It's one of the ways we get rid of noise. There's a particular type of noise out there called pattern noise, which no matter how many calibration frames you take, you cannot get rid of this type of noise. And dithering basically allows us to basically move the sensor around as we take pictures throughout the night of the target. And so we're not using the same pixels to image the same parts of the sky. And that dithering essentially removes that pattern noise. And by the way, when you do high res mode, it's actually kind of already doing this.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons why daytime photographers see an a decrease in noise, is because you're getting rid of pattern noise when you do that.
Mm.
The other thing that I would love to see would be the ability to go longer than 60th a second with a built-in intervalometer, because I hate using an external intervalometer.
Yeah.
That's one other thing. It's like, come on, a couple lines of code is all we need.
Right. Right. Yeah, I've seen it in other cameras. You can set several minutes, right? But
Actually, like Olympus is the only one that with the intervalometer you can go up to 1 minute. Like Canon, I think you can only go to 30 seconds. Same thing with Nikon. Sony only allows 30 seconds.
yeah, I think
Could be wrong.
Fuji's the one that has the longer. But okay, so yeah, definitely very astrophotography focused changes you'd like to see there. How about you, Joe? I know this is not really your ideal topic, but what would you like to see next in cameras in general?
Cameras in general?
Yeah, or Micro Four Thirds. Like. What do you think?
What I want to see most in cameras in general is not actually a camera feature; it's a software feature. We've talked a lot, about the whole idea that, well, you've got 8K video, and do you really need 8K video and all that? But I think that part of what's happening with camera technology within the next 10 years, it's going to flip. And listen close, folks, because a lot of you are going to think I'm crazy or I'm going to scare the hell out of you, but it's all right in front of you. So just open your eyes because it's already here. The technology is going to flip. Still cameras are going to go away. There's no reason for us to have still cameras anymore. Now, don't panic. I say still cameras, not still images. The still images will never be replaced ever, because still images allow us to see things and record things that our brains are not capable of. But what do we do with our technology? We make it smaller, lighter, faster, better, more efficient. We get it to do more work for us. So imagine, if you will, even just shooting a portrait. Put the person in front of your camera, say, okay, smile, press the button, and it shoots a 4-second, essentially video clip. So by today's math, 4 seconds, 30 frames a second, that's 120 frames. Most of you, like me, are like, I don't want to have to cull through 120 frames to find the best image. Well, guess what? You don't have to, because there will be software. Imagine Lightroom, open it up, and you'll have a series of check flips. What do you photograph? It's a building. It's a person. Oh, it's a person. Full length, close up, whatever. It's a close up. Now, do you want full face? Do you want 3/4 face? Okay. Do you want smile? Do you want any blinks? What do you want? You do your checklist, and boom, it's going to cull it down. And out of that 120 frames, it's going to give you 3 great images that fit the criteria. we're reaching a point where video sensor capability is just about at the same resolution as what we're using for still cameras. So it's simply going to make sense to pull our still frames from what would essentially be video clips, right? We already have cameras that won't let you press the button if people have their eyes closed, or will only let you press the button if people are smiling. So it's simply a matter of a software company like Adobe or Luminar or one of those building that in so that we have the culling capabilities. So I see that's where it's going, but it's not a camera feature, it's a software feature.
Right.
Cameras, I think, are simply going to continue to get better, but the better quotient at this point is, are we going to be able to see the difference? I mean, even, you know, with sensor size and all this stuff and all this arguments, we're at a point where we don't see the technology. And I just wanted to make a point just to really cause some stress for people. So here's an EM1 Mark III body. Okay. By my definition, this is like the greatest camera body ever made. I love this camera. So many people know I recently picked up a Sony a7R IV-A. So this is a 61 megapixel camera. Now, let me just show you these two cameras side by side. Let me turn it around to the grips. This 61 megapixel a7R IV-A is just fractionally bigger. And I mean fractionally bigger. And here's the best part, gang. Guess which camera's lighter? It's not the Olympus. It's the Sony. So the point is this. Now, somebody should pop up really quick and say, yeah, but Joe, full frame glass, it's tons bigger, tons heavier. You're right. Sony glass, especially, tons bigger, tons heavier, tons more expensive. But Sigma glass, which is amazing glass, super small, super lightweight. In fact, even right now, this is a Sigma 28 to 75 on this body. Super small, super lightweight. So am I saying it's better? Rush out and buy it? No, but I'm saying all this griping about size and everything else. And even actually, just to contradict Ben a little bit, and with respect, I think, because I'm the old guy, so since he had to bring up age right out of the box, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pull the age card and say, well, you know what? Since I've been around long enough, I think what he was referencing about how, you know, kind of to his dismay, companies are making things so much bigger and unnecessarily bigger. I actually think that's just part of the natural evolution because, you know, we can go back even to like, you know, the Industrial Revolution, and we can look at how machinery and equipment was made and advanced. We made it bigger because it was the choice of, do we introduce the technology, even though it's going to be big and clunky, right? And that's, come on, gang, that's what the EM1X is. Everybody bitched that the EM1X was so big, but why did they make a big camera? Because they had this really great technology, and they couldn't get it any smaller yet. But then already the EM1 Mark III comes out with some of that same technology, and it's smaller. Right? So there's this evolution that we always go through with new technology where it's going to get bigger, it's going to get heavier, it's going to be really expensive. And then we get better at making it smaller, faster, lighter. And so this whole debate over, you know, size, even with full frame cameras and that. Yes, right now, Canons, like Robin said, man, you better be in good shape if you're going to carry a Canon kit around today, for sure. And Nikon's not a whole lot better. But, and Sony's got bigger cameras and Sony lenses are massive, but across the board, we're starting to see the tide turn, and size is not going to be the advantage for Olympus forever. So it's just something to be worth seeing. Because believe me, I was one of those people that was always bitching, oh, Sony's too big. It's too this, it's too that. I was blown away when I got my hands on that camera to just the size and the weight of the camera. It is fractionally bigger than the EM1 Mark III, and it is lighter than the EM1 Mark III. And it's 61 megapixels full frame. And believe me, I assure you, even though I have one sitting here, I have no use for 61 megapixels, and most people never will. Yeah. So I've got it to kind of prove a point and, you know, to do some teaching with it.
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait to see those because it yeah, like you said, there's the specs, 61 megapixels, and then there's like in practice, what difference does it make, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. So.
Okay, that was great, Joe. How about Robin? What would you like to see next for Micro Four Thirds?
I think you know my answer already, and I've said it in one of my videos. The future came too early. My Olympus Air is in the dry box, but I would love to have something from Micro Four Thirds that can integrate directly with the phone. Something to attach and use my Micro Four Thirds lenses, the small ones. We know that everyone has a smartphone, everyone carries one around. Why don't we just tap into the market? And Micro Four Thirds makes sense because the sensor is small enough, the lenses are small enough that you can attach onto the smartphone and make use of all the smart connectivity. You can take photos, go into the phone, use the app or use the processing power of the phone to process the photo, computational AI. I'm sure that can be delegated to the phone's processor now that the phones are getting more and more powerful. And at the same time, you have direct connection to internet. You can post the photographs immediately. And we want that, not we want, but I want to see that happen, because that if that can be done successfully, I know why the Olympus Air didn't take off very well. It didn't do very well because it was too early. Bluetooth was clunky. It drops off too often. The software wasn't very good. There's just too many bugs. The user experience wasn't very seamless, I would say. Even to connect the Olympus Air to the smartphone back then, it wasn't very, very well done. So I'm sure all this can be improved now that the smartphones are getting more powerful. We have like 16 gigs of RAM in the phone. The processor is powerful enough to do even video editing now. So I'm sure it can handle these softwares a lot better. So in terms of stability while using the software connected, let's say the Olympus Air or whatever modular camera they attach to the smartphone, if all this is seamless, there's no problem, everything is stable, you have very minimal bugs, everything works, I think that's the future. You don't have to convince everyone to buy it. Not everyone is interested in photography, or some people just want to take snapshots. But if you can just convince someone to buy that just one extra piece of equipment, I think that's the future for Micro Four Thirds. And I think Micro Four Thirds, Olympus or Panasonic can make it happen. If you compare to, say, full frame manufacturers, right? It doesn't make sense to attach a full frame lens. No matter how small that Sigma lens is, Joe, you can't attach it on the smartphone. It doesn't make sense. Versus this tiny lens on this smartphone. That huge lens cannot, no matter how small it is. So I think, yeah, the future is modular cameras like Olympus Air. I think Olympus should revisit that, or OM system now, OM digital solutions.
Well,
That's
maybe maybe one day the market will be ready for that. Because I know there's been a few attempts by Olympus and Sony, and
Yeah.
I heard something about an Alice camera.
Oh, yes.
That I think is along those lines. So we'll see. That'll be very exciting, I think, for a lot of folks to have their smartphone just have a simple attachment and have virtually a professional camera, but with all the computational advantages that smartphones have these days. Let me go to Jimmy and see, what would you like next for Micro Four Thirds?
Right. Before I say anything, I saw a few comments saying that they can't hear me still. Can you guys all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Right. Okay. Hopefully they can hear me now. I have to speak as close to the mic as possible. Okay. Right. What do I want to see next? Well, I actually want them to go back to a little bit more basic stuff, to be quite honest. And we all know computational photography is coming. We all know that it's already been integrated, and Olympus is one of the pioneers in computational photography in the camera market. Not NASA stuff, Ben. And but you know, yeah, Olympus has been doing it for years, since the original pen cameras, you know, and all the other stuff. They're already employing some degree of computational photography and made popular with all this light composite and all the other stuff. We no doubt that that's going to push forward. But what I want to see is now I want them to go back to the basic and start looking at the philosophy of photography and what a photographer really needs into the in terms of design wise, the actual body, and you know, everyone is you know, I've got a lot of comments always in my videos about usability and also reliability issues, and I think that you know, a lot of companies, Canon's is a very good example. They released the R5 when it first came out, and then instantly people testing the camera saying that overheated like left, right, and center is everywhere. So like it's almost like they are so focused on technologies moving forward, putting the numbers as high as possible, but we completely disregard the actual usability and reliability point of view. They think that if I make a big tech gadget out, people are gonna be, wow, that's cool. It's true. Everyone's gonna say, wow, that is really awesome. Look at those numbers, 8K, 60 megapixel sensors, and so forth. And but at the end of the day, people start picking up these cameras, start using them, and say, it doesn't work. Or I'll use it for 5 minutes, it overheated. And then, like recently they released the R5C, which put a big fan at the back of it to avoid the overheating issues. And then it's almost like a quick fix in a way. But still, they didn't get away with the problem about the actual design of the cameras and what a photographer really need on the field. Like when they use the camera, when they pick up the camera, what do they actually need? Where the button placements are, designing ergonomics and all the other stuff. Olympus has always been quite good at it. The EM1s has, to me, is one of the best ergonomically, like a perfect camera for me, at least for my small hand anyways. Now I don't have a big hand, so I can't say for other people with different sizes. And also like lenses, I want them to go back to drawing board, look at some of the older lenses, and maybe revisit some of them, update them, and for the newer sensor side, because sensors technologies, what also does is in terms of the light frequencies, they also record more information, and some of the older lenses, the coatings may not actually be sufficient to take advantage of these new sensors, and also resolutions. We all are speculating it, and that the new next generation Micro Four Thirds camera from Panasonic and OM and perhaps other brands will be high resolutions. And will some of these older lenses be sufficient to resolve the power, have the resolving power to actually replicate what the sensor can capture? So I think that I think camera-wise, like all you said already, and we come to a point that we don't see the difference. As a photographer, we don't actually see the difference now. No matter what you do now, you can pick up an EM1 Mark III today, you take a picture, and you use a EM5 Mark III. Okay, disregard the resolution difference there, but you can look at the pictures. They are almost identical. You can't really tell the difference, especially if you're viewing things on an iPad or smartphone. You will not see the difference whatsoever. So in that case, we come to a point that, the digital sensors and the cameras are so good now, and you just don't see the advancements like what we used to see back in 2008, back in 2005. You don't see that anymore. And people can still argue, the latest generation stacked BSI sensors can do 500,000 ISO as clean as ISO 400. It might be true. I haven't even tried it because Olympus camera don't even go 500,000 ISO. And but what I'm saying is, we don't see the difference. So what I want to see now is more back to basics, like more glasses, more nice lenses, and maybe redesigning some of the older kit lenses and older smaller compact lenses that will really push the Micro Four Thirds envelope as a portable system. So, some of the older pancake lenses now, they are completely out of date because they were introduced 12 years ago. And then let's revisit some of these older affordable stuff. If you think about affordability, trying to push more people into the beginner level cameras, get people to buy the cameras and the system, you're going to have to start from the bottom. And a lot of the older bottom level lenses and equipments are getting a little bit out of date. And also some of the accessories as well. Look at the speed light that we have in Olympus system. And we had a new command system came out about 3 years ago now, and then. But you see that this is what's happening on the camera industry in general now. You don't see new accessory coming up from Canon, Nikon, and everybody. They don't. They're now just purely focusing on the camera body. That's it. They don't even look at lenses. They don't even look at speed lights, command systems, all the old stuff that we used to do. Nobody does it because they're relying on the third-party manufacturer to make it for them. And then now these third-party manufacturers, they look at, who sells the best? Who has the biggest sales number? Then I'll make it for them. And that's why it's getting harder and harder for people, let's say that in the smaller system like Pentax or Olympus or other smaller segment in the camera industry, they can't buy accessories because no one makes them. And the camera company don't make them either. So it's making it harder. So why don't the company actually go back to, if you're really supporting the system, believe in your own system, start making these little things. and to help photographers to continue capture rather than using like 12-year-old accessories that probably doesn't even it's not even compatible with your latest cameras. And something that I would like to see more. And but this is only my 2 cents, maybe a little bit of rant as well. And just hope to see
Just
more,
a little,
more,
but you're in good
just
company.
just more little things, just little things. And I'm not asking for a lot of stuff, to be honest. And like I said, my profession and my enjoyment is taking photographs and creating images, and that's me. And I could use any cameras I want, but if I believe in a brand, if I follow a brand, if I follow a system, I want the system to flourish, to continue. I want to see more stuff that can support the system, and that's I think that someone has to do something and making that work.
Okay, wow, that's we forget about the accessories, like manufacturer original accessories, and the reliance on third party has been pretty much second nature now. It's like you don't even think about, should I buy an Olympus accessory? It's like, wow, where can I find like a third party that makes this, and who makes the best one? And I never thought of that, though. You're right. I think a lot of accessories
that's even becoming more apparent, like what Robin just said, and earlier about filmmaking or the video feature side of OM cameras. And I mean, I have spoken before, and regarding this side of it, and like, if you're relying on third-party companies to make accessories, then you need to start communicating with them as well. And this is another thing that I think that somewhere along the line, someone will have to speak to these companies, because filmmaking, especially filmmaking, not like photography, which is a lot simpler. You need a lens, you need a camera body, you can go and just take some photographs. Okay, you may need a tripod, you may need a softbox, you may need something marginally, just a little bit more. But filmmaking, you need way more. You need lighting, you need like not just normal lighting, but big lighting. You need like the gimbal and electronic gimbals and all the other stuff, and they are proper professional gear as a separate entity altogether. It's not actually, you don't even call it accessory, but actually another thing that attached to the camera to make it work. And a lot of the third-party gimbals, for instance, and they're not compatible with Olympus cameras. None of them are, and it's making like buying decisions a lot harder for people who, let's say, even if OM's cameras are video capable, they're making great stuff. You can have all sorts of equal Panasonic, let's for argument's sake, equal Panasonic in terms of feature-wise. But you can't find a gimbal that works with it. You can't find another accessory that works with it. Right. And then you are really deterring filmmakers, potential filmmakers are getting into the system because they can't, let's say they already have all these systems already available in the house. If they want to switch to Olympus, but none of them works. That means, where can I go? And that will really kind of push them away. So if they really want to look into the video side, I think that this is something that they perhaps, have to invest some time and also effort into it as well.
Wow, yeah, I agree. That surprised me, though. I didn't even think of it, because I'm in that sort of tip, as a consumer, I'm looking at it like, yeah, what third party is going to give me this stuff? I don't, because I know I'm not going to find it from Olympus or OMS. Like just a camera cage for any of my cameras. They just don't exist, any custom camera cages for video. And that's a very basic thing you need to start if you're going to get into video. But okay, let me have Peter wrap up the last question here about what you'd like to see next for Micro Four Thirds, and then we'll take a little break and then we'll do some Q&A. But Peter, what would you like to see next for Micro Four Thirds?
Well, first comment about Jimmy. Did you notice, Rob, that when Jimmy started talking, super chat started to come in? So Jimmy should talk some more. Really? Well. I think I've asked this a couple of times lately from my viewers, and what they have said, many of them have said that the biggest thing for them, which they are called customers, is a new sensor. A lot of people feel that Micro Four Thirds needs a new sensor. I'm quite okay with the one that they have, but I partially agree that could be something, because that's what people are talking about. That's what they want, and if the next camera, whenever it comes, doesn't have a new sensor, it's going to be a disappointment, no matter what it has, other features. And the second thing is, and I think they should still continue making computational imaging features in the camera, like live comps and stuff like that. And the ultimate thing would be that if they could make something that we could be able to do images that we haven't been able to do before, like live comp is in certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be, and then of course the third thing, I think Jimmy said that too, is the f1.8 lens lineup should be upgraded to Mark II versions. I think that would be something that would sell quite a bit. And I'm more talking about what they should do in a way that they sell more cameras, which of course would be good for all of us.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm always hopeful that, you know, some new feature will come out that'll make my life a little easier. You know, I found the Starry Sky AF and handheld high-res shot. Like I said, you can get a tripod and you can manually focus, but these things made my photography just a little easier. So I'm always looking for new features like that myself. Like you said, and to be able to save us time when we're in the field, you know, and live comp,
actually
live ND.
Just let me say, can I say one thing? There was a comment from Polarized that he said about the firmware updates, and I think that's something they should also continue doing. They haven't done that for a couple of years.
Yeah,
big ones. Of course, that might be something to do with the changing the ownership of Olympus, but that's something that they should do, because that was great in the past when all of a sudden you almost had a new camera when the firmware rolled in.
Right. Okay, that's a lot of stuff there, guys. I really appreciate all of everyone's opinions and feedback and the conversation we've had about Micro Four Thirds. You know, for me personally, I'm very excited for Micro Four Thirds. Even if they don't come out with another camera, you know, the what I have now is going to hold me for the years to come. And really, no camera system, I don't think, is going to have any significant difference in our photography over the next few years, unless there's some significant change in sensor technology, right? Like, we're not using CMOS anymore. We're using, I don't know, algae. I don't know, some major shift in technology. But, you know, I'm just very happy with the Micro Four Thirds system, and I continue to use it, as all of us do, because we know, you know, that it's a very capable system, and I think we can look forward to more, you know, coming for the Micro Four format.
Can I comment
feedback?
One thing about
hopefully they're listening. Yes.
Yeah, can I comment about the sensor? Is that, like you said, that totally new type of sensor. I would love to have some time a sensor that doesn't matter what size it is. You could upscale it like a vector graphics, the image, just drag it to be bigger, and you wouldn't lose any just that. I don't know if that's even possible, but that would be totally cool.
Right. Well, okay.
Well, on that note, Peter, and you know, like I think we have a common theme here, since Joe was mentioning about all these. Or Robin talking about you know, integrating smartphone power, like horsepower, the chip into the cameras and stuff like that, and quite rightly so. I mean, I can see this is basically where we're heading now. Is more software integrations. We get more powerful processor in the camera. And who knows, you know, one day, you know, like something like the DxO Pure Raw could be integrated into the system itself. That means that we can no longer have that noise issues, or maybe even this, what you just said about upscaling, you know, Topaz has the super resolutions mode, and which is, you can also like integrate it into certain things. So instead of having a handheld high res, you just take a standard 24 megapixel images, but internally process it up to 80 megapixel without having even to utilize sensor movement displacement to create larger format.
Right.
And you know, this could be possible, you know, and I can see that theoretically that's possible, because it's all about computational stuff. So they have a processor, that means it's calculating. So in theory, you can actually integrate it straight away. But just how long will it take to make that image? And I guess it's all about readiness, in the way when we can have that powerful sensor, powerful enough to do whatever we ask them to do. And but then obviously comes to another drawback, is that like any computer chips, is that the more powerful it is, the more power hungry it is. And that means that whatever battery you have now won't last that long. People already complaining smaller cameras only last 200, 300 shots. Even EM1 lasts about 500, 600 shots per battery, depending on usage. And if you're having such a powerful processor, you know, you probably see it coming down to half of it, and then maybe even less. So I guess it's all about maturity, depending on technologies. And so technology is available, but it's just not ready, and I don't think it's ready. And
Right.
just like Robin's Air 01 video, you know, we probably have to wait for another 5-6 years before we have a solution in the power, and we have a solution for a processor, and to be able to do that sort of thing we're asking to do. I think in the back of the OM or whoever researching the next generation product already have these things in mind, but whether we are ready for it technologically, and this could be interesting to see. I think over the next few years, and Rob will be very happy, because I think that the technology is definitely moving that direction.
Yeah. And I said, I think let me go ahead and wrap up before we go to the Q&A section. That it seems like computational photography seems to be a common theme with everyone here. Would be the next biggest improvement we could see, and I think will really bring all the advantages that Micro Four Thirds has already, will really bring it into the mainstream if this computational photography kicks in as much as we all want it to. But that said, I'm going to take like a 1-minute break here for everyone. This will be a chance, if you can stay for the Q&A, you're welcome to stay. If you can't, thanks for joining us today. But for our viewers, we will take a 1-minute break, and when I come back, I'll be available for Q&A, and anyone else that can stay is always welcome. So thanks everyone. Let's just take a little break here. Let's see. I can run this one. Very good. Okay, everyone. Sorry, I have everybody still on standby. I'm going to give them a moment to come back. But what I want to do is just open up a Q&A for our viewers that could stay, or the guests that could stay. I didn't get a chance to ask everything I wanted to, but I have to be respectful of your time and also of the guests. So that said, let me go ahead, and I'm going to do my best to monitor the chat section and pick up your questions. And if you can, go ahead and start typing your questions in now. And, if you want to address it to a specific person, just put their name in front, and I can do that for you. So bring everyone back in. Oh, great. Everyone could stay. So
Of course.
I appreciate that. So
Joe, can you see what
Yes,
the
sir.
bottle says here? Do you love this brand?
Hey, that works.
It's a,
We
it's
already
non-alcoholic
that.
cider. Yeah,
okay.
it's one of my favorites.
I guess there's a question about gear, like about the WoW camera, and all I can say is that anything that has not been announced by Olympus, we don't know any more than you do, to be honest. And even if we did, we'd be under an NDA and couldn't tell you anyway. So I'm gonna have to avoid questions about anything that hasn't been released or publicly announced going forward, specifically like the WoW camera. But I have a question here, and I think this will be a good one for Joe. Actually, what this is from Mark Snyder.
Okay.
What filters do you use, if any?
None. I used to. I mean, having started photography back in the dark ages, I was a firm believer of UV filters on my camera lenses. Moving into the digital world, I upgraded my UV filters a lot to very expensive ones. But in the last 5 years or so, I've just stopped buying them. I don't do a lot of landscape and nature photography, so I don't have a big use for polarizers and ND filters, especially not with Olympus having live ND. So at this point, I don't buy filters. And keep in mind, I'm not lugging my cameras around on my shoulder a whole lot. My carry about camera, and I say it with pride, I have no shame. This is my carry around camera. It's an iPhone 13 Pro. I'll stack this against anything. For this afternoon, I'm going to go spend the afternoon with my grandkids, and I'll probably take some pictures while I'm there. But if my grandkids are playing baseball or soccer, then you better believe the Olympus is going out with the 300 millimeter and the 100 to 400, and I'm going to shoot like crazy. So.
Okay. Well, I'm surprised. For some reason, I assumed you would be using filters, but that's because I think your photography is so vivid, the images.
Well, I use a lot of colored gels on my light, but
yes,
not
on the camera,
not filters on the camera. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Anyone else here use any filters or anything?
Nope.
No.
I only use NDs for filming. That's necessity for filming, because you have to cut down the light. I do use polarizers on my drones when I took aerial photography, and because most of the time I use a drone, will be shooting something with water, and polarizer is definitely an essential tool for it. But yeah, I like Joe, and I think I stopped buying UV filters for as long as I can remember, 12, 13, 14 years now. I just stopped using them. My lenses are always naked, like nothing in front of it. And I know people always say that, oh, don't you worry about damaging the front elements, like dust and things like that. To be honest, I actually don't mind that. If it gets a little bit of dust, get a little bit of water, I just wipe it, use a rocket blower, just blow off the dust and stuff like that, just continue shooting. And I always think that, the lens is designed and made with the elements that's already been put into the lens, the barrel. And putting another layer of glass, no matter how good the quality is going to have some degree of, effect to the final image. So I just use it as how the lens has been designed for, and integrate it with the cameras, and that's my philosophy.
Yeah.
So,
I use a paralyzer, but okay. I see a question here for Ben. See if I can pop this up and get him to.
well, I want to answer the filter question first. So, like, I do use still a polarizing filter, but mostly that's for like water and stuff like that. And it also kind of doubles as a neutral density filter when I want even longer exposures. And then I can certainly echo though what Jimmy Chong said about filters. They do reduce image quality. Like I have a matched filter for my 40 to 150 f 2.8. It's a filter from Olympus specifically for that lens, and image quality is not as good with that filter on.
Okay.
And then the other thing I use a lot of is actually the types of filters. They actually clip in between the lens and the sensor, which is kind of a little scary the first couple times you do it. But
Is that the one from STC?
yeah, you have to specifically get a filter that is for your exact camera, pretty much. And
Have you ever met that guy, the guy who invented the STC filters?
yes, I have at NEAF. Yeah, I've run into him. He's a cool guy. He's a very nice guy.
Oh yeah, has he told you about why Olympus sensor is the best for astrophotography?
No, but I've always known that he was an Olympus fan. And
Apparently he's not just an Olympus fan, but he because he does these R&D himself. He's a
Really?
doctor, professor. I can't remember his actual title,
Mhm.
but he showed me 15 pages of different spectrum graphs that shows the sensitivity of different light frequencies. And then he said that among all the different sensors from Sony, Panasonic, Nikon, you name it, everything, he tested it. He said Olympus is the best for capturing the wider spectrums of light. So that means, in theory, the sensor is the best for astrophotography.
Yeah, they are. And yeah, so I guess the only complaint I have, maybe, and this is echoed on for all sensors, is that like the UV IR cut filter kind of cuts off about half of hydrogen alpha, which makes up 95% of our universe. And that's kind of what he's talking about, is that the hydrogen alpha pass through on these cameras is a little bit better than any of the other manufacturers off the shelf.
Right.
So let's answer this guy's question. How much of new capabilities would you see on board the camera, and how much latched on via external computational powers? And I actually typed up a little answer for him. So using computational photography, kind of like NASA does, where we do calibration frames and stuff to basically remove noise. Because noise is not just one type of noise, there are actually many different types of noise, and you do different types of calibration frames for each type to eliminate each type of noise at its source. You could probably see like maybe 2-stop gain in ISO performance just using that type of computational photography. And to do that, though, I mean, like, cameras are going to need about 8 times as much processing power as they currently have, and they'll need a lot of built-in RAM too, because basically the camera needs to basically calibrate itself. But that's kind of one of the cool things about computational photography, is it really, like, a lot of people are starting to say, oh, we're not going to see much more development in sensitivity of sensors, but that's wrong. There's actually a long ways to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And just real quick, this one is probably one you can do very quickly too. Can you use Starry Sky F in aperture priority mode?
I believe so. I think I've done it.
Yeah, I don't see why not. That's a separate feature. And there was one here actually for me. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Olympus advertises weather sealing. On secondhand sites, Olympus lenses are described as having light dust in the optics. Is it weather sealing hype? Ooh, well, I only have one weather sealed lens, and it's it's a zoom lens, and zoom lenses by nature are pumping air in and out all the time, so it's going to get dust in it. But I don't own any of the primes that are weather sealed. So I don't know if anyone else can speak to this. Did anyone want to try and address this one?
I can talk a bit from my experience working for Olympus.
Okay.
The way that the weather sealing works is that any gap or opening is sealed with rubber. So there is a life limit to the sealing. It's not sealed forever. Right, so depends on how old the lens is. Say that you have an old 4/3 DSLR lens, say the 12 to 60 or 14 to 54 from 15 years ago. Most likely, the weather sealing is compromised. Depends on where you are. Like if you're in the tropical country, the rubber sealing, after a while, it gets sticky, it melts, and when it's compromised, then there's no longer any sealing. So I think any lenses that's weather sealed for the past 5 years, 8 years is fine. But it's anything more than 10, 12 years, you got to be a little bit careful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that those rubber seals, they dry out and they become brittle and break. And
yes.
Most of that is your air conditioning system, which drops the moisture levels in your house to ungodly low levels that are not even healthy for you.
Right. Yeah, I think the best thing to keep those lenses is to have a dry box and like a humidity control box. You just put all the lenses in there. It's like most of the professionals do. They have a box like that just to keep all the lenses in there. Like what we say, like if you, I don't know anyone in here do underwater photography. Like just like those underwater housings. You have to replace the O-rings and the seals around it every so often, or you have to lubricate them to keep them moist. it's a general practice. Like if you worry about where the ceiling's so much, and the probably like every now and then obviously you can't check things that's internal inside it, but the things around the mount you can certainly clean and lubricate it every now and then, just keep them moist and making sure that it's working in the optimal position condition. So whenever you put the lens back onto the camera, it's always had that flexibility there to move in and out, making sure that it's properly sealed. That's another reason why, at least in the UK anyway, or in Europe, Olympus does have this service program on, and so like every couple of years you're really supposed to send the lens back for a checkup. And so the engineers there will check all the seals for you, and if anything that's been compromised, they will replace a seal for you.
Okay, wow,
Yeah,
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
It's not talked about enough. Jimmy mentioned it. Robin mentioned it. It's the dry boxes. Dry boxes are cheap, gang. When you look at how much money you spend on camera gear, depending on how big your system is, you can get a dry box starting at like $120 US dollars.
Yeah.
And even for the bigger boxes, like I have one that's a cabinet that's almost the size of a kitchen cabinet that only cost me $400. So you can imagine how much camera gear something the size of a kitchen cabinet can hold. It's a fraction of the cost of what you're spending on your gear, and it's going to prolong the life of your gear.
Okay. Yeah, I bought a dry box a couple of years ago. I'm very happy that I got one, because I had lenses that just got moldy.
Oh, wow.
Sure.
Because I left them in the basement, and
No.
this has prevented some of that. And then I just left this comment up here. I think this really speaks to all of us, that we're trying to motivate you guys to get out there and shoot, but because that's the most important thing. And let's see. This one here. Anyone can take this one. Do you think phase detect will trickle down to the EM10 series?
Well, first of all, I think why is everyone so obsessed about face detection?
Because it sounds cool.
Yeah.
Theoretically, contrast detect has the highest accuracy. That's in theory. If a sensor can detect like hard, sharp lines in the images, it will get the focus pin sharp. Face detect uses completely different technologies there. It's great for tracking, don't get me wrong. So if you're doing something sports and moving subject, face detection always wins. But this is another reason why Panasonic hasn't moved away from contrast detect, because it is accurate. And then if you look at point-to-point focusing, and nothing is going to be as accurate as contrast detect, and because the sensor sees only pixels, only ones and zero. When it detects a 1, it's in focus, and there's no halfway line there. Face detect, on the other hand, is completely different. You can go halfway point, so it may not actually 100% focus all the time. And but to me, I don't mind either way, and depending on what sort of usage you use. If you do use if you photograph a lot of moving subjects, yes, you may be right. You want face detect on your camera, but for EM10 series, I guess it's a hard line to draw, and especially from a product line point of view, they do want a sort of line to draw between a amateur professional level to a beginner level cameras. So if they have the same sort of focusing systems across the board, and you may find that you're going to have a cannibalizing factors going on there, and then you probably see that people are buying cheaper cameras simply because I don't need more expensive cameras for that. I guess it's more on a business level decision more than the actual whether they will filter it down or not.
Yep, I agree. This one was for Ben. I know we talked about filters, but if you can be more specific about the Astro filters, like what would be like the first Astro filter you would get if you were starting out?
So SCT, they make a dual band filter, which essentially it's almost like you're shooting narrowband with a one-shot killer camera. That'd be the first one I'd pick up, and that's actually on my shopping list. In the past, we used like what was called multi-spectra filters to like kind of get rid of specific band passes that our street lights emitted because they were a specific type of light. But we've got LED lights everywhere now, and that's kind of really screwed things up for that kind of filtration. And now, basically, dual band type filters, that's kind of the way to go.
Okay, dual band filter. And then
What's interesting though about these dual band filters though is that you're only using half the sensor because it basically blocks all green light.
Wow.
oh, okay.
Interesting.
So
But
one
with-
of the pixels are gone.
Yeah, with astrophotography, it's about your signal to noise ratio of the actual object, and light pollution is such an enormous source of noise, and it is a type of noise. You know, getting those light pollution levels low, even though you're reducing the overall amount of light that there is, it's worth it to do it. So like it's not a less is more thing. It's more like, okay, because we're blocking more light pollution, we can now expose longer. And
Right.
that's why it works so well.
Right. Okay. And then this one is about OI share. I don't know who uses OI share, and what thoughts would you have on camera control apps? Ben, do you use OI share?
Guess no one uses. Nobody wants to say
No?
anything.
Let the
Can I
young
say,
guy
can I
take
say
it.
something
Give it to
about
him.
OI share?
Yeah, I never use it.
I actually do kind of use it a little bit here and there. I know, especially for transferring photos, but believe it or not, it's a great way to kind of control your telescope or the camera when it's on a telescope because you don't have to touch the freaking camera.
Right. Right.
And when you touch the freaking camera, you know, you move it around. Oh, great! Now it's not centered anymore, or it makes the stars dance around, and then you can't figure out whether or not you're in focus or not. So I like Olympus OI share. It's just that one annoyance that, you know, the intervalometer only lets you go to 60 seconds. Now,
Okay.
if you use Olympus capture, which you can also connect via USB-C, that will actually allow you to use the intervalometer and do longer exposures. Like you can do 4
Yeah.
8-minute exposures.
Yeah, you're talking about tethering. That's a full-on control.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
full-on tether, and
Yeah.
I've actually used that to good effect, and I don't know. I think that might have actually been because I complained about this to one of the developers at Olympus. I'm not sure if he's there anymore though. So
Okay.
it was kind of cool to see my voice was heard and they implemented that.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And then there's a question here. I'll just give a blanket answer for all of us on this one. You know, where is it? What camera systems do you use besides M43? Honestly, I think we've all used almost everything. It's really irrelevant. I use different systems for different experience, not because I'm trying to get a different image quality, but just a different experience of going out and shooting. Like I'll go lo-fi and shoot my Hasselblad with film, or I might go, you know, my Nikon DF just because I think it's a cool looking camera, not because it gets any better image quality. So for me, I don't use different camera systems for anything other than the experience. When I do my professional work, you know, I'm a Micro Four Thirds guy all the way. I don't use anything else, with the exception for video. I do use a Panasonic S5.
So have all of you guys come from other systems?
Yes, I think so.
I guess I'm the only person here who has always done Olympus.
I've always been
Must
Olympus.
be.
Always
I
been
have
Olympus.
never-
Me too.
Okay, Rob.
Ben and Robin obviously are the youngest like people in this group here. You know, like
Because I started with an OM1 back before digital was even a thing.
Wow. Okay, you win.
Yeah, like I went to the camera store. I actually wanted to buy a Nikon, okay, because they had a bigger lens selection. But Rob Nosell, I told him I want to do astrophotography, and he took an OM1, he put it on the counter, and said, "This is what you want," and I've never regretted it.
Okay, and you're so popular today, Ben. Another question
Rob,
for you.
Rob, really quick, before you ask
Yes.
the question, Ophelia, I wanted to say hi, and I want you to tell your daddy that he should get off of YouTube, pick up his camera, and he should go take pictures of you. That's what you should do right now. Hi.
That was a good
Sorry,
one.
Rob.
I love it.
Awesome.
That's a good one.
I'll try and look for that next time. Okay, so I'm sorry, Ben. There was something here for you again. I just received my Benro Polaris and can't wait to start shooting, but it will be my first time. Can see just software that I would need on a PC.
Cool.
Oh, your mic.
Polaris, that's a tracker, isn't it? Oh, all these trackers, I can't keep up with the names anymore. So I use software called OzTap to stack all of my images and calibrate them. And then, and the beauty of that thing is that I can use my model camera to stack all the different channels together at once, and it does it all in one shot. And it's free too. It works on any computer, PC, Mac, even a Raspberry. And then I use Photoshop to do my image editing. So, and for sorting all my pictures, I use Olympus Workspace. That's my raw editor, so to speak. And then Photoshop is what I kind of polish things off with.
Okay, and then I have a question here for Robin.
Oh.
Uh,
Yeah. 15 body cap lens on an EP1. I want an EP1, but I can't find one. I've been looking through all the used market. Just couldn't find a good one. And I would love to do a content on EP1. I'm really curious. The first pen from Olympus, I never really had a chance to use it extensively. So yes, I'll be very interested. But I'm not very keen on the 15 body cap lens. I would recommend the 9mm fisheye. I think that would be more fun. You have like a distorted warp view, and it's almost so wide it fits a lot. And I think it's really fun using the fisheye view with the body cap lens. It's really tiny. But not specifically on EP1. I'll use it on any other cameras. It's fine on this EPM1 or any other Olympus cameras. But I'm really, really curious on the EP1. I know that Peter
Robin.
has unboxed. Yeah, he unboxed a new one.
How much? How much? I can send it to you. How much?
Maybe I should go to Finland and borrow it from you.
Yeah.
So like, and shoot the entire
you-
trip with the EP1. That would be fun.
You can. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's waiting for you. It's waiting for you.
I know. I'm so curious about that. So yeah.
okay, and then somebody's new to Olympus. I guess you've already bought a camera, and you heard the company's no longer. The company, Olympus is still around. They just sold their camera division to another company. So the camera division is still alive and well, and they've released another camera and 2 lenses this past year that I know of, and they have another camera announcement coming in February. So they're as they're still around as anyone else is, to be honest, right? As long as there's a cameras are still for sale. I believe Olympus will be there, or OM Systems. So I don't think you need to worry at all. And if you have a camera now that you recently bought and it's a recent model, it'll last you for 5 or 10 years. So you're fine. And there's a huge lens selection. So you can do everything you possibly want to do with the Olympus system.
I want to echo the confidence in Olympus that Rob was kind of saying. What I'm seeing, like the way they talk, I think I like the new ownership. I think it's going to go in the right direction, and I'm really excited about what's coming out here soon. Even though I don't know what it is. Sorry.
Oops. There was a question here about humidity-controlled boxes. Any suggestions? I bought the ones from Ruggard, Ruggard, and it's the 80-liter box. So the 80-liter Ruggard, it's about the size of like a college refrigerator that you keep in your dorm. And it holds like 8 cameras, and I've probably got about 30 lenses in there. But it's all Micro Four Thirds stuff, so it's easy to fit everything in there. But I don't know. I know, Joe, you're a big proponent for, dry boxes. I call them dry boxes. Do you have any suggestions beyond that?
I use the Ruggard as well.
Ruggard,
there's a couple
yeah.
brands. There's a brand called Slinger Electronics. There's Ruggard, and I'm drawing a blank on the third one. But if you Google dry cabinets for cameras, like Google that phrase, you'll find lots of options. They're all very similar in terms of how they work and what they do. It's really a matter of making sure you get one that's going to be large enough to hold your gear. And don't be short-sighted. If you're just starting out and you're intending to buy gear down the road, buy one that's got room for you to add more gear to it, so you don't need another box. But,
Yeah, and not just for cameras, where you can put all kinds of gadgets in it.
oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I put my triggers and flashes in there, but lenses are the most important thing
And
for me
someone,
because
someone is commenting that you could put cigars in there too.
Yeah, there you
Oh
go.
yeah, yeah, you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
And is there an optimal humidity? I never even thought about that. I just set it to the lowest, like at 35%, but I don't know if anybody has any knowledge on that.
Google it and check, but I believe it's around 45% is considered optimal. But
45.
don't take my word for it because I'm just some guy on YouTube. So Google that, but I think it's like 45%.
Yeah, I was going to say around 50
Yeah.
50.
because too low will dry everything out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ah.
55, anyone?
in the UK.
55, anyone?
Yeah, in the UK, if I turn on my heater, it's really dry, and the humidity usually about 35 to 40 degrees. So I think yeah, 50 will sound about right. Yeah.
Okay. And this is wow, 50. Okay. I'll have to turn mine up. I don't know if anyone knows if Starry Skies will trickle up. And this is kind of like what Peter was talking about. We need more firmware updates, right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of strange that they don't have it. Because what they advertise the camera for the outdoor adventure, and then they don't have the Star AF on it, which I think I don't understand. It's strange. It cannot be the sensor or the processor or anything. I think it's a bit strange.
Well, also the enhanced eye tracking, just like the M13, is not of.
Oh yeah, that's
the M1X
another
either.
one. I think that's another one. They should do that, and I don't know if there is a technical problem. I don't think there is.
Just a quick comment, because the question says that will the Starry Skies trickle up to EM1X? From my understanding, the EM1X is not above the EM1 Mark III. It is sitting side by side. That's the positioning of these two products. So they may have different features. So what you're saying is, will they share these features? But I think maybe Olympus or the OM system intend to keep them separate. That's one possibility. The other possibility will be software or maybe more on the hardware limitations. There might be certain things that's inside the camera that allows it to do some of these features. I don't know. But it's not like, oh, I want this feature, I can just implement it immediately. No, it's just like how EM1 Mark II will not get handheld high-res shot. It's just not possible, right? There are certain limitations to it.
Yeah, I agree with Robin. I mean, if you go back through all of the marketing and all the intent, the EM1X camera, it's a sports and action camera. And Olympus was very clear when they, released the EM1 Mark III and the EM1X. They're both flagships. They share equal space. So one, I don't think it's a given that they'll move those features over, not up or down. And also, too, we have to remember that we're talking about new owners that need to make a company profitable. They may not see the value in the firmware upgrades. They may decide that these features that everybody's talking about, they're going to be part of this WOW camera.
Well, that's true. But then you have the bird detection AF in EM1X, which is the sports and action camera, and the EM1 Mark III is for bird photographers, but it doesn't have it, and I know why it's not there. But still, I don't think they have the right logic. I think they're missing out here.
I agree that they've got to iron some stuff out. I mean, I think all users would love to have a better idea. That's the one thing that's missing. They have a lens roadmap that's very clear, and obviously they can't really give us a camera roadmap the same way they give us a lens roadmap. But it would be nice when this WOW camera comes out if Olympus was also to make kind of a clearer statement about where they're going. Not just, hey, here's this new camera and it's got these amazing features, because let's face it, they have a history, and it's the same R&D team. So they have a history of being innovators in the camera world.
Yes.
So we can probably expect a reasonable amount of innovation, but I guess one of my wishes, just to go back to one of Rob's really early questions, it would be great to get a better sense of where do they see their research and development going? What are the things that they feel it's important to focus on? Because I think that, yes, if they do something like that, there's a risk maybe they do lose some users, but I think that they secure the majority of their user base and they gain a lot more by being a little bit more transparent about, what is the plan? Where are they putting their efforts? Because that helps people feel more confident about the investment they're making.
Yeah, definitely more, don't make everything so secret. Everybody knows what everybody else is doing. Why don't you tell us, right? And then just a little more generic or speculative question, I guess. Do you think Olympus or whoever might have an open source type interface? It's kind of technical. If you know what open source means, it's like public domain software for processing powers of the camera. I don't know. Maybe anyone want to take that one up?
Well, you simply like asking like if Apple wants to let everybody know what the backend is.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I think that's something. I think it's a cool idea, and I think that's something that you're going to find eventually. It'll happen like on a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo, where somebody's going to have an upstart idea. I do think that Olympus is sitting on an opportunity if they continue to build it out, where you can customize your camera, and that would be when you look at the EM1X and you look at the autofocus modes that it has. You've got your birds, trains, automobiles. Okay, well, what about a specialized focus mode for maybe sporting events with people? Maybe it's running events, whatever, any number of possible things. Where in theory you could purchase that upgrade or download that upgrade and then update the firmware, because even though the camera's got 2 sensors, it can only hold so many AIs, right? So for me, I'm not a bird shooter because I don't go out in the cold. So I can get rid of the bird AI and let me have an AI that's going to be better for what I shoot. That would be an opportunity, but I don't think we'll see open source on any camera brand.
Yeah, never. It's too many. They'd have to open themselves up to too many trade secrets, or like Jimmy was saying, too much intellectual property in a camera for them to just make any piece of it available.
There has been some hacking done in the past, and
I've heard Magic Lantern, and I've seen people come up with firmwares they can overwrite and extend and do things, but that's really rolling the dice. If you brick your camera, you're out.
I
warranty voided.
Yeah, I used to use that Magic Lantern way back, and it was actually quite good. And I even could shoot raw video with the old Canon 5D something, which was amazing. Like 10 seconds, but still, it was nice to experiment that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you got an old camera like me, I might try somebody that's some hacker, but I don't know. Anyway, the answer is extremely unlikely they'll ever have open source on our cameras. And then this one, I guess, since I've dropped things so many times, and I have specifically broken my Pancake kit lens, you can maybe send it into Olympus and they'll give you an estimate of how much it'll cost to fix it, but most likely it's gone. It's going to be cheaper to buy another used one than to get it repaired.
Hey, Rob, I hate to do this. I've got to take off, but I wanted to say, one, thank you for doing this, Rob. Two, gentlemen, for the rest of you, as always, it was fun. I hope we get to do this next year. And if we are all back here next year, hopefully, I'm going to propose this in advance. So you've got a year to work on it, okay? I think that the color next year should be yellow so that we can match Jimmy's glasses, okay? So we got a year. Yeah. Find that yellow in the wardrobe. And,
but what if Jimmy has new glasses next year? What if Jimmy has new glasses next year?
Well, then he's got to give us a little bit of notice. I mean,
okay,
all right.
Don't worry, I'll keep these yellows on for the next year.
Jimmy will be the trendsetter. Okay, Joe. Well, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Nice seeing you.
I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Yeah, and just a time note, we are on 2 hours, so I'll stay on for a little longer as long as you guys are here and we can answer questions.
Yeah,
sure.
Fine.
If you need to go, don't
sure.
don't hesitate to let us know.
Yeah.
No problem.
Let's
I'll be here
see.
for another 10, 15 minutes.
Oh yeah, there's still.
I guess we've kind of answered this in the first part. Is M43 going to disappear if full frame is getting smaller, and how to improve skills of photography? One is who knows? I think Micro Four Thirds will be here as long as anyone else, and if they do go, they won't be the first. All the other manufacturers won't be far behind if Micro Four Thirds doesn't survive, in my opinion. And then, how to improve your photography, basically practice. You probably have a pretty good skills or knowledge base already. You need to develop your skill set and practice. But I'll leave it. Did anyone want to add anything to that?
Yeah, the skill set. Practice your skill set. Get the manual for your book in a printed version. Read the thing cover to cover. And I'm still working on my EM1 Mark III. Highlight things, booknote ears, dog ear pages. Because when you read a book and like learn about the camera, you will learn so much about the camera. And I know it actually is a constant annoyance to me when I watch YouTube reviews about Olympus gear that I know about, and I see guys complain about something, and I'm like, you got that wrong. There is actually a setting to turn that off because they don't. Half the reviewers out there have no idea what they're doing with the camera, and it's because so many people don't know about all the features in their cameras. There's so many freaking features in these cameras. My OM1 was a 37-page book with big pictures and big text. My E1X, it's like what, 500, 600 pages long? There's a lot to know.
Yeah. Okay, and then the next one actually
But I
is
would
for
say,
you, Ben.
can I comment? Can I comment
Oh,
one
sorry.
about that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you should look at photographs a lot and learn from them, and then get your photographs also some feedback. That helps. So you might not see everything, and we always have to remember when we make an image, we have a personal relationship to the actual time we made the image, and that will kind of puzzle our mind, and we think that the image is good because we had a good time making it. But getting some feedback from others will help.
I want to add on to that as well, talking about how to improve your skill as a photographer. I think a lot of people don't talk about this, but it's very important that you shoot for yourself. You don't shoot to impress other people, because the trend that I'm seeing is that people want likes on social media. They shoot a photograph and they evaluate how good that photograph is by how many likes and comments that they get. They want that instant gratification. They want that validation from other people. But when you do that, you're not shooting for yourself, and it makes it very hard for you to improve, because all you think about is, how do I get the likes from my social media? And that's not photography. Photography should be about you doing what you like. You have to ask yourself what you want to do with your photography. Only by then that you truly open yourself to doing the photography that you want to do, and that's how you improve. I think that's very important.
I can definitely echo what Robin just said, and even if you're a professional shooting for money, and you should also be shooting for yourself, and because I have been there as a growing professional, from the first day when I stepped into the professional arena, starting getting my first paycheck. And for the first few years, I was shooting for my clients, so I would do whatever the clients asked me to do. But I find it increasingly more difficult because obviously trend changes, people's visions changes. I'm not just talking about the fashion of photography change, but is that decisions making are changing, or even on the day. So as a professional, that is going to be very, very difficult to adapt. But by shooting for yourself and eventually developing your own style or your own voice, it's a very important step for defining you as a photographer, who you are as a photographer, and your client know you as a photographer, of who you are. So like your style shows, and if they believe in you and believe in your photography and your vision, and there should not be any more questions like that. And that means that they will have to follow your lead instead of they leading you as on the day. So that's a very important thing. But that I'm talking about from a professional point of view. But even as a personal level, what Robin is completely right there. Don't do it just for the sake of getting likes on social media. because even if you got 2,000 likes, doesn't mean that your image is actually great. In some instances, just because you're a popular person doesn't mean that your photography are actually on the same par as some of the greats in history. So you have to be very careful not to fall into that trap. Social media doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. If you want it to be approved, go into open international competition, then you see how you stand with against the world in terms of photography. And sometimes even camera clubs can be a little bit toxic because sometimes they talk about gear a lot and then they compare specs instead of actual photography. And sometimes they can be maybe a little bit too technical, and then trying to get into this what setting do you use to take that photograph instead of the actual content within the photograph and the meaning behind it, why you take that shot in the first place. You just have to find out exactly what type of photography you're into, what sort of things that really takes your fancy. Like Ben, he likes astrophotography. This is something he loved to do. This is something that really, whenever he sees the black sky, he just say, "Oh yeah, that's an opportunity there." And like Robin, every time he hits the street, when he sees some nice food, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna get that shot there."
And cat. Don't forget about cats.
Cat. Yeah. So you're gonna have to find that thing that really gets your interest, get you excited. And so that you just basically when you see that thing happening in front of you, you just can't help yourself but to pick up the camera and take a photo. I think you have to find the element to excite you. And once you have that, and you just focus on that, and you become the master on taking that type of photography. And it's easy to say that, wouldn't that become boring just shooting one thing? I don't think that is, because that thing don't stay that stationary for you forever. It just changes all the time. Even if you like dogs, doesn't mean that all the dog photos are the same, because dog has different personality. Dogs have different things. They do different things all the time. And like even sky, Ben's astrophotography, sky changes all the time too, not all the same. So like you can't say that just because you're taking one type of photography is going to be boring for life. It isn't the case. And it's fine to explore different type of things to have take your fancy, but having one particular direction as a photographer always helps to improve your skills, because you are more focused at any given time. So I think that's quite cool to be focused on.
Yeah, can I comment one?
Well said, Jimmy.
Can I comment one thing about shooting for yourself? Have you heard the a line that Helmut Newton, the world famous fashion photographer, said when someone asked him, "What are you shooting?" He said, "I'm a gun for hire. I shoot anything the client wants." The thing is that what he showed to the world were not those images. But the images that he showed was the ones that he wanted to make.
Okay.
So that's...
Sorry, let me, Ben, answer this question if you can. And then
So I put a link in the chat for one of the videos.
Oh, okay, you got it. All right.
I did a video just on this very topic. And
okay.
in that video, I've got links to the actual parts that he'll need.
All right.
Okay, so yeah, look for Ben's channel on this one. And then there was another question about using vintage OM lenses on our cameras, and I think all of us have tried that. And personally, I enjoyed a lot. The 50mm f1.8, the 24mm 2.8 are excellent lenses. Also, the 135 3.5 are the three that I think are probably the best OM lenses to adapt to our Micro Four Thirds. Did you have anything you might want to add, Peter? I know you've done it.
Yeah, not really. I think it's if you're looking for sharpness, then that's not the way to look at it. It's more about character of the lenses.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's it. It might give you a different look, and which you either like or not. It's a matter of taste. So,
right.
But it's a lot of fun. I do have several and some adapters, and I think that's one of the coolest features, that you can use almost any lens that was ever made on a Micro Four Thirds camera. So that's of course worth the try, and you can get them cheap. And of course, there are expensive ones, but you can get some cheap ones. And if you don't like it, just sell it back, and you probably get the same money back, so you don't lose anything.
Olympus made a 135mm, I think it was an f4.5 macro lens. And from what I've read, that lens was the sharpest lens Olympus ever made.
Which one?
It's the 135, I think it's f4.5 macro lens. You have to use it with their auto bellows. But it does go to infinity even on that auto bellows.
Yeah, I
But
know which one you're talking about. Yeah, it's a weird
it's an
looking one.
incredibly simple design optically, and they use good glass in it, and because of that, it is like one of the sharpest lenses Olympus ever made.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Good to
So
know. And then,
that's kind of a neat lens. That's actually one of the lenses on my shopping list.
all right. And then Robin, just a quick one there for you. EP1 for 49 pounds.
Yeah, and I asked him what MPB is, and he says some site in the UK, and
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
a store. Yeah.
the delivery fees will be like what, $200 to Malaysia? I don't know.
Plus insurance and import tax.
It was like $300. I don't know. There's like no.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, I know the EP1 that's for sale here is going for about that much. It's $79 US for an EP1 at a store. So that seems reasonable.
Yeah, I couldn't find one here. I just couldn't
Yeah.
find one.
I mean, I can go get one right now. It's on sale. But, $79. I'm like, I'm tempted to get it, but at that, I got so many cameras I bought just because I thought they were cheap.
That's not a good reason.
Yeah. And then
What?
Ben, we're gonna have to do a separate stream for Ben because there's so many Astro type
Yeah.
questions here. But what do you think of this one here? 12 to 100 f4 or 12 to 40 2.8?
That 12 to 100 that's a sharp lens, but I think you would just have more fun with the 40 to 150.
Okay.
So-
And I assume this is astrophotography related. Otherwise, we could all answer that
Yeah, he
one.
says
but-
occasional astro.
Okay.
Surprisingly, the 12 to 40 f2.8 isn't a great performer. You got to stop it down a good bit in order to get good images out of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
there's a-
interesting.
There's a lot of spherical aberrations in the wider end. Like you got to almost shoot f5.6 with it.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
And then do native OM lenses perform better with OM cameras in general? No. The quality is the same whether you use... A lens is a lens. It's independent of the camera, I believe is the right answer. Anyone disagree with that?
Yeah, I don't have an OM lens, so.
Okay. And I'm trying to catch up.
Yeah, you're popular, Ben. You should come on more often.
Do you have to add
Well,
water to a dry box? No.
No, it regulates it.
What I would love to do is do one on sensors, because there's a lot I could yabber about on sensors. Because there's a lot of
Oh, that sounds
misconceptions,
interesting.
too.
That sounds interesting. Yeah.
The
Yeah. Well,
technology
when a
behind
new
them.
camera comes out, Ben, we should jibber jabber about that in the stream.
Yeah, we should do that. Yeah, it'll be fun.
But next person I'm gonna have on though is Matty, if he's still even gonna talk to me after this.
But it's not your
he-
fault this time.
It's not your fault. No,
Oh,
he
yeah,
had.
it's not your fault.
Yeah, I was messaging with him, and he said hey some technical problems, but he was now put the beep on off. Beep off.
Okay, and then this one's for Peter.
Yeah, I put an answer there, but yeah, not really any problems. It's quite durable, and it doesn't matter how much water or how much snow there is, it still works perfectly, and no problem with that. The only concern, of course, is the battery life. If it's really cold, it drains the battery quite fast. But the funny thing is that if you switch the battery, always have a spare one, and then switch and put the drained one in the warm pocket, and then you can put it back. It kind of like wakes up again. I don't know that much about electricity, but it's a funny thing, and it shows that it doesn't have any juice. But then when it gets warm, it does.
I want to echo
So
that.
That's the only thing.
A lot of manufacturers actually build a limit into the battery so that when it gets down near negative 20 Celsius, like it just won't run. Because if you pull power out of a lithium-ion battery, they can tend to explode when you get down below minus 20. So,
But I've had any problems in minus 35, no problem.
and that's
fine.
that's why I tell people like if you start the camera up before it gets to minus 35, it'll keep running because the battery will keep itself warm as it's drained.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah, and
that's
of
kind
course
a
the camera
trick
is
to-
warm because the battery is here, and this
Yep.
keeps it a bit warmer. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
actually
starting one
the
cold.
temperature. Yeah.
So the 3D consumer digital camera, I do remember Panasonic had a 3D lens,
Yeah.
if I'm not
Yes, they did.
mistaken.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Is
they
anyone
did.
familiar with that at all?
Nope, use it.
There are quite a few different 3D consumer digital cameras. I don't think they're made anymore. Although Canon just recently announced a new lens, a 3D lens, literally just last couple of weeks, I think. Two dual 210 degree lenses together to form 3D images. And but in terms of consumer level digital cameras, I think the last one that was made was Fujifilm. They made that point and shoot that was shooting 3D images. It was very popular, and but I think it's the problem with 3D cameras is that you need special software, and also you need the spectacles or sort of 3D glasses to actually view the images in 3D. It makes it quite cumbersome. I think Fujifilm made the 3D cameras that you can actually view the 3D images without any glasses at the back, and but that was last sold in 2010, I think 2012. And then they haven't made them ever since because they didn't sell too well, unfortunately.
Okay.
If
It's
you guys
interesting.
have
I've
ever
never even
watched,
looked into it. Like I knew Panasonic had a lens, but not. But the cameras you talked about, I never even heard of. Okay. What do you think scaring APS-C and full frame users away from M43? It's kind of backwards to me. It's like it's not like you're I think most full frame users switch to micro four thirds, but I don't know. I'll answer the question as it's written, I guess. What do you think is currently the biggest factor of what scares away APS-C and full frame users away from M43? Is it still the same sensor size, scare, or not enough bokeh?
I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of people that they use that as a crutch to like, oh, you can't get nice bokeh with a 4/3 sensor. However, if you're banking on that, if you're selling yourself as a professional photographer because your pictures have shallow bokeh in them, you are going to go out of business soon because cell phones
yeah,
do
exactly.
that artificially, and they're getting better and better at it. So I see
yeah.
that as something that will just pass away with time.
Yeah, and we also have to remember that bokeh is actually quite new thing. Way back, nobody was talking about shallow depth of field or bokeh or anything. They just,
It was an annoyance.
it wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing
Yeah, it used to
at
be
all. And now
annoying.
all of a sudden, it's like the biggest thing in photography. And there was one comment earlier that using bokeh is only a way to hide that you cannot make the composition right.
Right.
It could
I
be
think
sometimes,
that is,
but of course, shallow depth of field is sometimes good to use, but it's not, the thing.
And
That's
it's
defines
very
a
easy to
good
do in
photograph.
Photoshop,
Oh yes,
if you want. And then, wait, this one real quick. The SEMA 1 microphone adapter. I don't know why it's so hard to get, other than it's just not, it's only, I think the EPL8 was the last camera to be able to use it. The Pen EPL8, which is like a 4 or 5 year old camera now. So it's just lack of, but I have one. Maybe I should put it on eBay for like a couple $100. I don't know.
oh yeah, you can make good money with
Wow, a
that.
couple of hundred. I have one too.
Yeah.
Oh, this is how things get expensive.
I sell it for 150.
150, okay. 149. All right. How about this? There was a question about, do we think Panasonic and OMD, whoops, things scrolled, will collaborate like the automakers do? I don't know. They should, but I don't know. I don't know if you guys are aware of anything.
It's an interesting concept, building. Let's say like what you just said about automobile, build a common chassis, for instance, for vehicles, and so they can share components, for instance. But then again, from what I witnessed over time, all the camera manufacturers, they are quite close to themselves. They don't like to share their secrets, and to others. They don't mind joining an alliance, like Micro Four Hundred did, or the latest L alliance with Sigma, Leica, and Panasonic. They don't mind sharing the mount and certain principles, so so the lenses and communicate to each other. But I don't think that they would go beyond that to start looking at how Olympus IBIS works, in full detail, because Olympus has the best IBIS, regardless. And they don't want to tell people, how they make the IBIS works or the algorithm of it. Likewise, like Sony wouldn't want to share the iFocus to anybody else, and it just something that I think that it to them is a trump card to what they sell as a system. That's their thing. If they're starting to share that sort of thing, potentially R&D costs will be a lot lower, that's for sure. But then they're starting to lose their own identity and also their own unique selling points to the customers.
Yeah, I gotta echo what Jimmy's saying. Like, I don't ever see the manufacturers cooperating. I mean, if they do cooperate at all, it's because they have to. Like, just look at lenses. Like, everybody's focus ring, zoom ring, aperture ring goes the opposite direction. Why can't we standardize that?
Even the turning, instead of turning left to right, right to left.
Especially between Panasonic and Olympus, because it's so annoying that if you use Panasonic lenses, it's the opposite way. Of course, you can turn it on an Olympus, but still, I think they should have made that.
Funny. And then Lauren has a question about.
That's one reason why I've always bought just Olympus gear, because it drove me nuts to have a lens that something went the opposite way.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right. And then what do you guys think about the new OM20? Do you think it's about the right price or too pricey, or?
It's the right price.
It's right? hard to say. It's so.
I don't have the lens. I've not used the lens, so I will not comment on that. But I'm sure it's a fantastic lens.
Yeah, I think it's about right. I'd like it to be cheaper, but it's about right.
Yeah, no. At the moment, everybody's still paying the RRP, which is the recommended retail price, and because the lens is so new, the street price hasn't come down yet, and it will eventually come down a little bit, and especially when it comes to sales time, you're going to have some deals on. But in terms of the RRP, if we compare across the board, and I think it's reasonable for a professional grade lens, and with weather seal, full metal barrels and stuff like that, compared to the lower end lenses. And you can't really compare, and it's a 1.4. Essentially all the other cheaper lenses are 1.8, not weather seal plastic. The 17 is metal, and but the lack of a lot of things as well compared to that. And the only thing that like I think everybody said the same thing already in their reviews, is that the 20 hasn't got the manual clutch. I think that's still my only gripe about that lens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would have bought the 20 instead of the 25 1.2 if because I bought the 25 1.2 before that lens came out, and I think it's a fair price. To me, it's actually the normal lens for the system, because, like, when I look at how wide a picture is, and when the average person does, they don't look corner to corner. They look at the right side and the left side, and our system's a little bit more squarish than 35 millimeter is.
Yep.
So people, when I was using my 25 1.2, I was like, this kind of feels just a little bit more telephoto than a normal 50mm lens that I was used to on my OM cameras. So 20 millimeter, I mean, that to me, just that's the normal lens for the system.
Yeah. And even if you compare it to the Panasonic Leica 25 1.4 Mark II, the RRP, if you look at the recommended retail price, not street price, the 20mm 1.4 Pro is actually very similar in terms of price. So if you're saying that the 20mm 1.4 is expensive, and equally the Panasonic Leica 25 1.4 Mark II is basically on the same ballpark figure, and even that is a plastic build, not even metal. So I think the price is actually justifiable.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah, if a lens is priced right or not it's a little bit subjective. You can't look at it just the specs, right? It's a little subjective. Like, where else are you going to find a 20 millimeter 1.4 that's weather sealed with the metal build quality, right? I don't know. Anyway, Just quickly, I'm not sure what this question is, but it says, in your opinion, the market has room for which cameras and what's missing?
Ooh.
And then they put GM5 pen and EM1 and EM1X.
I want to say something about this.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, anyway.
Just go ahead.
Do it.
Right. Okay. Right. Funny you said that because I'm about to make a video about this.
Oh,
Nice. Should we wait
all
for
right.
a video?
No, it's fine. You know, I can talk about it. And
yeah, nobody
because,
watches my channel,
Teaser,
so it's
trailer,
okay.
trailer.
It's only because I think, you know, like I know like both Panasonic and Olympus and even any other companies are basically gunning for the more matured market, you know, with great handling body, weather seal, rugged, metal, whatever, you name it. But I think one thing is missing, especially from a Micro Four Thirds point of view as a platform. When was the last time someone makes a tiniest camera in the lineup? The tiniest. I'm talking about like GM5 was probably the last smallest camera ever. You know, I have the GM1, which is still today is the smallest ever interchangeable, well, not interchangeable, a Micro Four Thirds camera made on the platform. GM1 is as small as the Sony RX100 in terms of body size. So that is tiny. And you know what? And that is what a consumer potentially wants. It's a tiny camera. You know, I know Robin earlier showed the EP1 and how small it is. Exactly. You know, like consumer likes small things. And then I know we talked about trends going big and then going small again. I think at some point, you know, like a small camera could potentially sell very well simply because for the fact that a lot of people, smartphone users who just like to going out to snap some great shots, and if they have a proper camera in the pocket, I mean, why wouldn't they? And then and if the price point is correct, and with today's technology, imagine that the GM1 that I have, which is almost 10 years old now, 9 years old, and then that camera is still fully capable, 60 megapixel sensor. It may not have the same dynamic range, it's an older sensor, and AF is not as quick. But now we have all the technologies now that we can certainly capable of making something tiny, but packs a punch, with potential will sway away a lot of the people who are still thinking about upgrading to a smartphone to get better pictures. Instead of that, and just get into the Micro Four Thirds platform.
Okay. Well, we'll look forward to your video on more on that. Yeah, but a small, tiny camera, that would be kind of fun to have. And this one is directed directly at me, about Glen Elko, because, you know, I go with David Crooks in the photo club, and yeah, it's going to be all outdoor. So yeah, dress appropriately. It's below zero. I mean Celsius, or I think it's like, well, it's supposed to get up to almost 32 degrees. But anyway, yeah.
I have a confession to make. Sorry, going back to the GM5. Some of my earlier videos, a few of them were shot on GM5 secretly. A few, just a few. I won't review which one, but some of them.
Okay.
You are just asking people to go back to your old videos to look at them.
Clever.
That's a great advertising, right?
I don't want to look at those because they were so bad. I don't even want to look at them myself. I'm like, I don't even know what I was doing back then. So
I know. Is anyone tempted to delete their old videos? I know I am sometimes. But then they have the most views.
GM5. Yeah. Sorry, Rob. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Last year there was talk of M43 Zine. Any more thoughts of a group collaboration? Not really. We haven't talked about it.
No.
I don't know what that means exactly, an M43 Zine.
A magazine.
It's a thing. It's like a book, and
Oh, okay, I see. Yes.
Photo book.
yeah, like a collaboration is like basically pumping all the Micro Four Thirds photos, great photos in the book, this kind of thing.
Oh God, no! I wouldn't put any of my photos in.
You just see cat photos from me.
You know, that's what social media is for, right? Instagram stuff. You can subscribe to all of us that way, I think. And then I think I will. Let me see. There was a question. the best software to process ORF files. Honestly, Olympus Workspace is really good. It depends what you want to do with the processing, though. If you just want to process and convert to JPEG with minor editing, Olympus Workspace. After that, it's just a personal preference on the workflow and the workspace of the software. So download all the free trials from all the different softwares and see which one your mind clicks with and seems intuitive, because all of them are very capable. The free ones, the paid ones. It's just a matter of which one works, I think, best for you. But I use Workspace still a lot, and I use Photolab 5 for the editing, but then for the for organizing the photos, I use Lightroom. But I don't know. I know Robin uses Capture One.
Yeah. Oh dear.
And I'm out of battery.
Mine's getting ready to go too, so I gotta go soon.
Oh yeah, I got.
try and wrap it up here.
I have 22 minutes. One more battery.
I'm the only one using the EM1 X that's got dual batteries in it. So I'm still
I
running.
secretly swapped the batteries during the break, so I'm good.
Oh, clever.
Yeah, I need to get ready for my photo walk today with the club and stuff. So.
Oh.
Cool. Sounds good.
My
that's
2-year-old wants me to play with him, so I should probably call her a day.
Yeah. So I'm gonna wrap it up here. I'm sorry if I missed anyone's questions. I'm just gonna go through real quick, but any last words from any of you? Let's start with Robin.
Nothing much, I guess. I just want everyone to go out and shoot more. Use your camera and enjoy photography. I think from my side, what I'm doing now for my YouTube channel, I want to do more POV style street photography. I attach the action camera. It's here actually, so I can attach this tiny action camera on my chest as I move along and capture what's in front of me to show you guys how I actually get my shots. No secrets, so you see what's real, and the shots that I get is with minimal post-processing, right? It's exactly what you see. So I want to do more of that. I think I get some positive comments. There will be minor changes coming in March. I will announce it very soon. Nothing major, nothing huge. There's just a slight change in the direction that I'm going with my YouTube channel. I can't review it now. I want to, but I can't. But I'll talk more about it in my channel in March. But I think basically that's it. Everything goes on. Shutter therapy goes on. I shoot a lot more these days. And yeah, I look forward to seeing everyone's content. And I look forward to see Ben's content. I really love what Jimmy is doing. And I love what Peter is doing. And Rob, please do more videos. I see that you're doing more these days, but please do more besides live streams. I want to see you going out to shoot more as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Jimmy, what would you like to say? Any last words?
No, just get out and shoot more. And well, for those who've been watching my channel knows that I already changed the direction of my channel quite significantly this year.
Yes.
And it's definitely more art-based and more philosophical. I will also talk more about, or actually doing more street style or location shoots, because now the UK is slightly opening up again. Our restrictions has been lifted, so we no longer have to wear masks everywhere or have to do certain things. We can literally go out free like what it was before. So that allows me to basically do something that I've been missing for the last 2 years. So I'm looking forward to that. Although having said that, and things are still moving very slowly in general. And so even like models, for instance, that I used to shoot with, and they're either moved out of the country already, and also some of them are not quite ready to go out to shoot yet still. So it's still posing some challenges for me to trying to get the channel back to where it was. But because of that, I'm adapting and also changing the direction as well. So, but don't worry, people who enjoy me shooting models, that will come back at some point, and just whenever everybody's ready, really. But apart from that, hopefully that my new artistic direction is good. Seems to be everybody seems to be quite enjoying quite well. So I think that I'm making the right choice at the moment.
Yeah, and I really enjoy your portraits, Jimmy. I really do. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. A new one coming out next Tuesday, so that should be interesting.
That's me. What was the question? Sorry. Rob, you don't have a
Rob,
mic on.
you're muted. The question is, any final words or any?
Oh,
anything that you
okay.
want
Yeah,
to
sorry,
say?
I was a bit distracted. Yeah, well,
Sorry, my fault. Yeah, I'm back. Yeah,
yeah, no
what
problem.
Robin said.
I would say that go out and shoot more, and that like everybody else's, because that's the whole thing. That's why we have the cameras. Okay, someone might collect them, but that's a different thing. And then what comes to my channel, okay, a lot of stuff goes on around the 52 assignments. I will be doing videos about those topics and assignments, and I've been doing them myself too. So probably more about photography, like I said earlier, also. So hope you enjoy that content too, and not only reviewing gear, which is of course something that I will do, but not that much.
Yeah, review gear is cool, but I think looking forward to everybody's new content.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
I
and
think
then I
where you
guess
need.
we'll leave Ben to wrap it up for us.
Oh yeah.
What's new? What any last words and anything you might be coming up on your channel?
I'm gonna be releasing a video soon. It's where I photograph some things with a 6,500 millimeter focal length,
All right, cool.
so you can see the limit of what the sky can give us. But yeah, just get out there, shoot more. The late summer, fall, and winter are the best times to do astrophotography. So if you want to give it a try, those are the best times to start. Don't try in the spring. That's the worst time of the year to start.
Okay, when it warms up and you actually want to go out at night. That's
The
the
cold
worst
is
time to
good
go.
though. The cold is good for the camera. Less noise.
Okay. Well, let me take this opportunity to thank everyone again for joining us today, the viewers and my guests. I really appreciate it. I'm very flattered that you would be on my channel, and really, I think you gave some great insight, and it was an awesome conversation about Micro Four Thirds, and more importantly about photography. You know, the message being, you know, from all of us is to go out and shoot more and practice more, because that's how you get better, right? And we all try to teach everyone the best we can any technical barriers you might be encountering, but ultimately just get out and practice, which is what I'm about to do. I got a couple of people that I'll be working with this afternoon, and thanks again everyone for joining us today, from
All
my
right,
audience and
before Rob
Yes.
completely cuts everything off, everyone, guys, please send Rob a coffee, buy him a coffee, or if you can contribute anyway, support him. He's been
Oh, yeah,
great.
full
He's
screen.
been doing all this. And please
Full
also,
screen,
you know, subscribe to Rob's channel, support him. I think he deserves a lot more subscribers. He's the one that's always doing all this hard work, putting everyone together, doing all these interviews with us. So he deserves a lot more support from you guys. So please, if you can, buy him a coffee, please.
Oh yeah, do
I
that.
actually saw a comment earlier saying that someone suggested we should do this twice a year instead of annually.
Yes.
Buy him
Well,
a
I
coffee
think-
and that will happen.
Yes,
I know.
exactly.
What I'd like to
yes.
do actually is have you each on individually at different, you know, and spread it out throughout the year rather than having, you know, these two big ones. Just have a lot of mini ones, right? Would be better. So I'll look out for that. I'll email you guys. But okay, everyone have a great afternoon. Thanks again for joining me today. I'll probably be
you.
back
Thank
on
you for
Thursday,
having
and
us.
check out everyone's channels. Their links are down below. And thanks to Joe Edelman who left a little earlier. I really appreciate you coming in as well. So we'll see you all again soon. Thanks again.
All right.
And
Bye.
恭喜发财 for those who are celebrating.
恭喜發財，恭喜發財，拜拜。